Chapter 226. Yang Huiying came to the mall to buy some necessities. She never thought that she would meet an acquaintance here. Tang Zhongyi, the man who had left a mark in her heart for the first time. In the past year, she had been forcing herself not to think about him. She didn't expect to meet him in such a place. There was a girl standing beside her. Gu Xingyin's back was facing her, so Yang Huiying didn't recognize her. She subconsciously thought that Ning Zhao couldn't be here. However, when Tang Qian excitedly pulled Gu Xingyin to say something and she turned around to smile, Yang Huiying saw her clearly. How could it be? Wasn't Ning Zhao autistic? Didn't she not want to be stimulated and couldn't see strangers? Didn't her condition worsen after she told her about her parents' death? Then who was this girl who was smiling so freely in the middle of the bustling crowd? Yang Huiying only felt indignant. She had paid the price of staying away from the Tang family, but Ning Zhao didn't seem to be affected at all. How unfair was this? She felt like a shameless voyeur. She silently followed behind them and watched them enter the luxury stores that she didn't even dare to think about. She watched the three of them being intimate. Knowing that Tang Qian was complaining that he was hungry, they entered a dessert shop. Yang Huiying followed them in and sat next to them. There were two large pots of plants in front of the two tables. "Hello, what would you like to order?" The waiter looked at her with a smile. Yang Huiying glanced at them and pointed at one. She didn't know why she wanted to follow them, but there was always an indignant feeling in her heart. It made her look like she was torturing herself to look at the girl she had always been jealous of smiling happily. Gu Xingyin obviously knew that Yang Huiying was sitting behind her. It just so happened that this gave her a chance. She reached out to take out her phone from the small white rabbit bag she carried with her. No one noticed that a white piece of paper floated out and landed under Yang Huiying's table behind her. "Don't play with your phone when you're eating." Tang Zhongyi looked at her helplessly and dotingly. Gu Xingyin stuck her tongue out at her and opened the game without hesitation. Anyway, this man was just saying. He couldn't bear to take away her phone and make her unhappy. Only Yang Huiying saw the paper. She glanced at it. It was densely packed. It seemed to be a music score. She calmly picked up the piece of paper and put it into her handbag. Her heart was beating a little fast. "Miss, your coffee." The waiter's voice pulled her back from her thoughts. She absent-mindedly stirred the coffee in the cup until Tang Zhongyi and the other two finished eating and left. The coffee in the cup was already cold. She couldn't recall the past. Instead, she hurriedly returned to the small house she lived in. She even forgot the purpose of buying things. After locking the door, she carefully took out the piece of paper and read it slowly. The more she looked, the faster her heart beat. She was very sure that this music score wasn't a well-known piece. Moreover, the entire piece was handwritten and there were many traces of modification. There was no doubt that the composer was talented. Yang Huiying had seen Ning Zhao's talent in piano before, and it had fallen out of Ning Zhao's bag. This music score was most likely Ning Zhao's own work. Chapter 227. Yang Huiying walked absent-mindedly. Her contract with the orchestra ended today, and this could be considered her last performance. The location was a bar, and it wasn't too messy inside. After all, a bar that could afford to hire an orchestra was considered a bit high class. It was just that the people inside were all sorts of freaks and monsters. Yang Huiying didn't think that she would be fancied by a drunkard. "This girl looks pretty good." The fatty with the oily face looked at Yang Huiying drunkenly and chuckled. He then shouted at the person in charge of the orchestra, "How much for her to accompany me?" The manager of the orchestra had a difficult expression. Some members of their orchestra would occasionally have such services, but Yang Huiying was different. She wasn't an official member of the orchestra, and she was a student of a famous music academy. He said with a smile, "Sir, Miss Yang isn't a member of our orchestra. She's a student of Chingsong Academy. You should know Chingsong Academy." The fatty ignored his words and looked at Yang Huiying with wide eyes. He sneered, "Chingsong Academy? Her. Do you think I'm an idiot? What kind of people are the students of Chingsong Academy? Why would they come to your lousy orchestra to be a piano player? Let me tell you." Yang Huiying only felt that all the customers in the bar were looking at her. This feeling made her feel very ashamed. If she could get everyone's recognition at the graduation ceremony, she wouldn't be like today, bullied by these vulgar people who only had a few bucks, and pointed at as if they were watching a show. Her wavering heart finally made a decision. In the end, under the manager's apologetic smile, the fatty cursed and found another female musician. Yang Huiying didn't think that there would be such a dirty deal. She resisted the feeling of disgust and hurriedly finished playing the song and went home. She took out the white paper from the bottom of the drawer. "Sorry Ning Zhao. Anyway, you're living a life of luxury in the Tang family. This kind of work is just icing on the cake for you. Moreover, if you can create a work like this, you can naturally create a second one. And right now, I urgently need it to save my life. This is your work." Yang Huiying's teacher looked at her in disbelief. Yang Huiying nodded. "It took me nearly a year to write it out. Teacher, is there a problem with this?" Her tutor read the score over and over again excitedly. After a while, she said to Yang Huiying, No. You're a genius. I haven't seen such an exciting work in years. I will recommend you to perform on stage at the graduation ceremony at the end of the month." He had already made up his mind. With such a talented student, even if Tangkor wasn't happy with her, he couldn't let her go unnoticed. Yang Huiying walked out of the tutor's office with excitement in her heart. She knew that she was halfway to success. Soon, it was the end of the month. On that day, Yang Huiying put on the clothes she had meticulously prepared, put on the most exquisite makeup, and stood on the stage of Pine Forest Academy. In front of her were countless internationally renowned musicians and first-class orchestras. "Next, I'll be playing my piece, Sunshine." She bowed elegantly and slowly placed her fingers on the piano keys. Chapter 228. Clap, clap, clap. Yang Huiying's lips curled into a smile as thunderous applause sounded. She knew that she had succeeded. Sure enough, not long after she stepped off the stage, someone came to find her. "Hello, Miss Yang. I'm the assistant conductor of the Lemon Tree Orchestra. May I take the liberty to ask if the song just now was composed by you?" The man was dressed in a suit and leather shoes and had a kind smile on his face. Yang Huiying nodded her head reservedly. "I used to be an intern in a small band. During this 1 year, I experienced all kinds of ups and downs. This song, Sunshine, was written based on my experiences during this year." The man frowned slightly, but still nodded. "After experiencing countless setbacks, you still didn't give up. Finally, you found your own sunshine. Miss Yang's song has a good meaning." Yang Huiying maintained her smile. The two chatted casually for a while, and the man gave Yang Huiying a business card before leaving. After the man left, Yang Huiying could not help but reveal a happy expression. The Lemon Tree Orchestra was one of the largest orchestras in the country. The chief conductor was an internationally renowned musician, and the rest of the members were also slightly famous musicians. A band like this wouldn't easily take the initiative to talk to people. Since the other party came to find her, it meant that they had the intention to invite her. She returned to the dormitory in a good mood. Everyone in the dormitory knew that she had stepped onto the big stage of the graduation ceremony and congratulated her. Even Xiao Lin smiled and congratulated her as if the previous grudge between them didn't exist. "Congratulations, Huiying. Maybe our dormitory will have a great musician in the future." Yang Huiying glanced at her and said indifferently, I can't compare to you. You signed a contract with the West Sea Orchestra before you graduated. Xiao Lin's smile froze. She knew that Yang Huiying still minded her previous words, so she smiled and left. Yang Huiying sneered. When she was down, she hit her when she was down. Now that she saw that she had made a comeback, she wanted to get close to her. Did she really think that she was easy to bully? The person who contacted Yang Huiying earlier also returned to the orchestra. Elder Feng. He respectfully called out to a thin old man. How is it? The old man called Elder Feng asked. The man said, Miss Yang claimed that the song, Sunshine, was composed by her own hands. She wrote it based on her experience as an intern in a small band a year ago. Elder Feng frowned and said, the first half of the song is full of depression and despair. What happened to her in the band? That's why you don't even have the desire to live. Works were the best way to express one's emotions. A master like Elder Feng could naturally tell what the song was trying to express at a glance. Yang Huiying did not know that people were still discussing her work. In fact, Gu Xingyin did not have time to sign her name. Sunshine was just a name that Yang Huiying came up with based on her own understanding of the song. But she did become popular because of this work. The entire Academy of Music knew that there was a genius in the piano department. At the graduation ceremony, he had created works that were praised by world-class masters. Yang Huiying had received countless invitations, but she had not replied. She was waiting for news from the Lemon Tree Band. Yang Huiying was confident that she, who had created a masterpiece like Sunshine, would not be missed by any band with a good eye. Chapter 229. Gu Xingyin was well aware of these matters. But she was Ning Zhao now, a Ning Zhao who didn't care about the outside world, so she knew nothing about what Yang Huiying was doing. She prepared a big present for Yang Huiying. Ning Zhao's 18th birthday came quickly. The Tang family treated Ning Zhao like their own daughter. 2 years ago, they didn't dare let her see strangers because of her relapse. Now that Ning Zhao was a lot better, Mother Tang decided to hold a big birthday party for her and announce Ning Zhao's existence to the outside world. With the Tang family's influence, they invited 2/3 of the famous people in the capital. Because Ning Zhao loved music, Mother Tang specially spent a lot of money to invite a famous local band to perform. Coincidentally, this band was the Lemon Tree Orchestra. Elder Feng, it's just a junior's birthday party. You don't have to go personally, right? His assistant whispered. Elder Feng shook his head. If I don't go personally, that old man Tang Qingshan will come to my house tomorrow. Tang Qingshan was Father Tang. Elder Feng knew his old friend's temper very well. Father Tang and Mother Tang stood on either side of Ning Zhao and introduced her to the guests. Their behavior made everyone understand that this girl's status in the Tang family wasn't low. Some observant people noticed that although Ning Zhao maintained a smile the whole time, she didn't say much. They even secretly sighed that this girl seemed to be too introverted. When the party was about to start, Gu Xingyin suddenly walked over to the chief pianist of the Lemon Tree Orchestra. Tang Zhongyi naturally followed her. Gu Xingyin glanced at Tang Zhongyi and he immediately understood what she meant. Can I borrow your piano for a while? Tang Zhongyi didn't understand why Zhao Zhao suddenly wanted a piano, but he still asked politely. The chief pianist of the Lemon Tree Orchestra didn't look too good. To be the chief pianist of the Lemon Tree Orchestra, he was a famous figure in the music industry. This was his personal piano. He had spent a lot of money to hire a famous master to make it, and he didn't let anyone touch it easily. Just as he was about to refuse, Elder Feng looked over and said, Lingji, do me a favor. Today is this young lady's birthday. Let her touch your baby. He had heard his old friend mention Ning Zhao before and knew that she was Tang Zhongyi's future wife. Of course, he couldn't let her down. Since Elder Feng had spoken, the chief couldn't refuse. He stood up and walked to the side. He secretly swore in his heart, if this little girl's level is too low, no matter what, I will not let her continue to humiliate my beloved zither. It was as if Gu Xingyin couldn't see the expression on the first seat's face. She calmly sat down, then looked at Tang Zhongyi and smiled. This is a song for you. She winked at him. Tang Zhongyi looked at her gently. Their actions had attracted the attention of many guests. Hearing that Ning Zhao had composed a song for the Tang family's second young master, they looked at the two of them, and then looked at Tang Qingshan and his wife, who were not surprised at all. Many people began to question Ning Zhao's status in their hearts. The moment Ning Zhao's hand touched the piano keys, her entire temperament changed. Her expression was both sad and happy. Her slender and fair fingers danced on the piano keys, and strings of notes poured out from her fingertips. The expressions of the chief and Elder Feng changed. Chapter 230. Elder Feng's gaze was fixed on Gu Xingyin. The piano piece that this girl was playing was clearly the sunshine that he was very optimistic about. But she had clearly said, this is a piece for you. In other words, this piece was her own original composition. Elder Feng and the chief pianist sitting at the side looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. It wasn't just the two of them. Everyone in the Lemon Tree Orchestra, as well as many music lovers among the guests present, had heard Yang Huiying's Sunshine. Now, comparing the two of them, the gap was too big. When Yang Huiying played this piece, although everyone was shocked, they felt that something was missing. Now that they heard Gu Xingyin's version, they realized that she didn't play the soul of this piece. The entire hall fell silent. Everyone was infected by Gu Xingyin's piano music. They seemed to see a girl in a bottomless darkness. There was no hope, no future, and no trace of light. She thought of seeking death. This might be freedom. She wouldn't have to struggle in this muddle-headed world. Tang Zhongyi clenched his fists tightly. He understood Zhao Zhao's song. He had never thought that Zhao Zhao would break down like that when she learned of her parents' death. She even thought of ending it with death. He only felt cold sweat on his back. Fortunately, God was not unkind to him. Fortunately, he had put down everything to be by her side at that time. Otherwise, he didn't know what would have happened. After reaching the extreme of despair, the style of the entire song suddenly changed. A person appeared by the girl's side. He patiently accompanied her, took her to watch the sunrise and sunset, accompanied her every minute of life, and took her to see all the beautiful things in the world. Little by little, he brought light into her world and pulled her out of the bottomless darkness. He was her salvation. When the song ended, Gu Xingyin was already in tears. Tang Zhongyi couldn't hold it in anymore. He rushed over and hugged her tightly. How could you, how could you? His voice was choked with sobs. He buried his head deep into Gu Xingyin's neck, covering his red eyes. The eyes of the Tang family members also turned red. They had watched Ning Zhao walk step by step, so they could naturally feel the deepest emotions in her works. Clap clap. At first, there were scattered applause, but later, all the guests stood up and applauded them. Elder Feng also stood up. He looked at Gu Xingyin strangely, as if he had discovered a rare treasure. The chief disciple's expression was not much better than his. At this moment, he had completely forgotten his previous unwillingness and began to think of a way to make Gu Xingyin acknowledge him as her disciple. As for Yang Huiying, she had already been ignored by them. They were all musicians, so it was clear to them who was real and who was fake, and who was the real composer. Without real experience, who could play a song like Gu Xingyin to this realm? Tang Zhongyi coughed, sorted out his emotions, and gently held Gu Xingyin's hand. Gu Xingyin stood up with her strength. Thank you for the piano. Tang Zhongyi said to the chief disciple of the Lemon Tree Orchestra. The chief disciple was very kind at this moment. It's okay, you're welcome. If Miss Ning Zhao needs anything else, you can continue to look for me. Chapter 231. Yang Huiying had been waiting for Lemon Tree Orchestra's reply. During this period, her tutor often took her out. Compared to before, this treatment was like heaven and hell. She was applying a mask on her bed when she suddenly received a call from her tutor. Hello. What? I'll be right there. She hurriedly tore off her mask, tidied up, and left. The principal pianist of Lemon Tree Orchestra told me that he heard your Sunshine at another place yesterday. Also, the other party said that this song was her original work. He now doubts the authenticity of what you said earlier. Yang Huiying's expression changed. Could it be that they met Ning Zhao? She couldn't admit to this. She pretended to be angry and said, the other party must be lying about this. Sunshine is my original work. I have the manuscript here to prove it. Her tutor saw that she was firm and felt relieved. No matter what, he didn't want his student to be someone who plagiarized other people's works. I'll explain this to Lemon Tree Orchestra. Don't worry, the truth will come out. Yang Huiying forced a smile and looked a little dazed. Her tutor saw her like this and thought that she was affected by this matter. He comforted her and left. Yang Huiying returned to her residence. The more she thought about it, the more flustered she felt. No, she had to do something. She couldn't let Ning Zhao have a chance to explain. This song could only be hers. At this moment, someone posted a video on a large music forum that she frequented. Yesterday, I went to a banquet and happened to hear a song. The OP was shocked. With the mentality that it's better to share it with others than to share it alone, I'm sharing it with the netizens. Yang Huiying clicked on it and saw that it was a video of Ning Zhao playing the song. The angle of the cameraman was very good. Even the dialogue in the video was very clear. Ning Zhao's sentence, "This is a song for you," was enough for people to hear clearly. Yang Huiying was anxious and angry. She kept scrolling through the comments below. Some praised the beauty of the song, while others asked who the person playing the piano was. After flipping through for a while, someone finally pointed out that the name of the song in the video was Sunshine. As early as half a month ago, he had heard someone play it at Pine Forest Academy's graduation ceremony. The composer was obviously not the girl in the video. Yang Huiying saw this and suddenly had a plan in her heart. Half an hour later, a new post was posted on the forum. It was signed by Yang Huiying. In the post, she publicly claimed that she had seen the video on the forum. The girl in the video said that the piano piece was her original composition, but she had already played the piece on the big stage of Pine Forest Academy half a month ago. That girl was just a despicable plagiarist. She even put up photos. In the photo was the manuscript of this piano piece. This caused an uproar in the forum. Many people were condemning Gu Xingyin. The OP of the original post was also confused. He only said that he did not know this girl and that the video could have been taken during the banquet. When the netizens asked who the girl was, he refused to say anything. Tang Zhongyi received a call. Second young master Tang, did you take a look at the Sound of Music forum? Someone said that the song Ning Zhao played for you the other day was plagiarized. Chapter 232. Tang Zhongyi flipped through the comments of the netizens page by page. Looking at Yang Huiying's righteous condemnation on the top floor, the anger in his heart could not be suppressed. Despicable plagiarist. Yang Huiying really dared to say that. Who was Zhao Zhao? How could she plagiarize other people's things? This song was specially written by Zhao Zhao for him. If she knew that she was used by Yang Huiying with ulterior motives, he did not know how sad she would be. He decided that he would not tell Zhao Zhao about this matter. But he hid it here and forgot that there was still Tang Qian. Tang Qian did not understand the sinister world of adults. He simply felt strange. Why did Auntie Zhao Zhao write it, but Teacher Yang said that he wrote it? When Tang Zhongyi came to Gu Xingyin's room, he saw a very unhappy Zhao Zhao. She sat on the bed hugging her legs and ignored his arrival. What's wrong? He sat beside her. Gu Xingyin secretly despised himself for trying to act cute, but his eyes turned red all of a sudden. Tang Zhongyi became anxious and hurriedly asked what made her unhappy. Gu Xingyin sobbed and said, "You. Yang. I wrote it." Tang Zhongyi spent a long time to understand what she was talking about. Because of that woman Yang Huiying, his face was so gloomy that it could drip water. "Zhao Zhao, you can rest assured that no one can take away your things," he swore to Gu Xingyin. However, Gu Xingyin tugged at his sleeve and handed him something. It was wrapped in a gift box shaped like a rabbit. Originally, it was your gift. After she said that, she remembered something and more tears fell. Tang Zhongyi did not have time to open the gift. He was in a hurry to coax Gu Xingyin for a long time. Finally, he coaxed the crying Gu Xingyin to sleep. He opened the gift. It was a CD. Tang Zhongyi left the room quietly and returned to the study. He turned on the computer and put the things on the CD. The girl in the picture seemed to be a little unaccustomed to the camera. She smiled shyly. It was Ning Zhao. "This is my gift to you, Tang Zhongyi, you. This song contains everything I want to say to you. This song exists because of you." Although Ning Zhao's speech was no longer obstructed, it was rare for him to speak so coherently, let alone in front of a camera. Tang Zhongyi was sure that Zhao Zhao had practiced for a long time even if it was such a short sentence. After that, the long-haired girl in white sat quietly in front of the piano, playing the song, "You," over and over again. Her expression was so sincere, as if this song was her whole world. Tang Zhongyi didn't know how long he had been watching the video. The corners of his mouth unconsciously lifted into a smile. The anger brought about by Yang Huiying had unknowingly dissipated. Look, his girl's heart was also filled with him. She would carefully prepare a gift for him, try to speak to the camera for him, and make such a song for him. He opened the forum again. Yang Huiying's post had reached the top and appeared in the most popular place on the homepage. Many people supported Yang Huiying and advocated exposing this shameless plagiarist so that she could no longer stay in the music industry. Tang Zhongyi looked coldly at the top of the post, Yang Huiying. He was very reluctant to share this video with others, but... Chapter 233. While Yang Huiying's plagiarism incident was in an uproar, another video was released. The person who released the video didn't hide his identity. He stated his position at the beginning, "I never thought that there would be such a vicious and shameless person in the world. She actually dared to despicably plagiarize someone else's work and then frame the creator as a plagiarist." The person who spoke was Tang Zhongyi, and the video he released happened to be the gift Gu Xingyin gave him. In the video, the girl in the white dress played "You" over and over again. When they saw Gu Xingyin's video, the clamoring voices on the internet suddenly disappeared. It could be seen that the person who made this video was very attentive. The feelings that the girl poured into this song could be seen even by a layman. In contrast, Yang Huiying was much worse in terms of playing and expressing the meaning of this song. It was clear at a glance who was better and who was worse. More importantly, the date was clearly written in the lower right corner of the video. As early as half a year ago, this disc was recorded by Gu Xingyin bit by bit. During this period, Tang Zhongyi also went to Gu Xingyin and asked if she had any other videos. Gu Xingyin also gave him some scattered videos that weren't put on the disc. It was worth mentioning that the manuscript of the score that Yang Huiying used as evidence appeared in Gu Xingyin's video. In the video, the girl held a pen and kept writing and drawing on a piece of snow-white paper. Occasionally, she even erased some parts that she wasn't satisfied with. Some attentive netizens took the music score in the video and compared it with Yang Huiying's original. They were surprised to find that not only the handwriting, but even the mistakes in the erasure were exactly the same. Tang Zhongyi also asked a famous computer expert to prove that the video he posted had absolutely no trace of falsification. When the netizen posted the comparison picture, it was a slap in the face. Obviously, the manuscript that Yang Huiying took out was the result of someone else's labor. She was the one who had really plagiarized. Yang Huiying soon received a call from her tutor. The tutor roared through the phone, "What's with the video on the internet? Didn't you say that this was your original work? Yang Huiying, you've really disappointed me." The tutor hung up the phone directly. Yang Huiying held the phone tightly, her heart in a mess. The academy's response came very quickly. Yang Huiying received an email from Pine Forest Academy, stating that Pine Forest Academy could not tolerate the appearance of students who plagiarized and maliciously slandered others, and that Yang Huiying's student status would be revoked. In other words, she, Yang Huiying, had been expelled from the school before she had even obtained her graduation certificate. It's over, everything is over. From now on, with such a stain on his name, he would never be able to establish himself in the music industry again. In the past, those classmates, whether they were better than him or not, would only look at him with disdain when they talked about him. Yang Huiying covered her head with her hands and buried herself deep in it, as if the things that she couldn't face had never happened. Gu Xingyi knew that the threat from Yang Huiying had been completely removed. Then, the rest, she looked at a certain man who was walking towards her with his back against the light. She smiled like a flower and took the initiative to give herself a hug. Chapter 234. Tang Zhongyi felt that he had used up all his luck to be able to meet Ning Zhao in this life. The first day he saw her, the sun was shining brightly. In the garden of the Ning family, the girl with her hair loose and sitting on the swing gently swayed his heart. After that, he took her back to the Ning family. The second young master of the Tang family learned how to take care of a person for the first time. He dried her hair, covered her with a blanket, and watched her sleep at night before he could feel at ease. If someone had told him in the past that he would do this for a woman one day, he would definitely have scoffed. But now, he looked up. Ning Zhao, who was already a mother of 2 children, was sitting quietly on the swing just like when they first met. She was holding a book and studying it carefully. The sun shone through the leaves above and scattered on the top of her head. It was as if time had never left any traces on her. She was still the same as when they first met 10 years ago. Quiet, beautiful, and no longer ethereal and unapproachable. He saw his 2-year-old daughter running towards her mother. The two of them said something, and the little girl plunged into her mother's arms. The mother and daughter laughed together. Now, he could no longer see the shadow of the Ning Zhao who had once closed herself off. She had become fond of laughing, taught the children how to play the piano, and played games with them. Dad, I want to go to Disneyland on Sunday. Mom has already agreed. The 4-year-old son looked like his mother, especially his pair of dark eyes. They were exactly the same. Okay, tomorrow, let's go together as a family. He smiled, picked up his son, and walked towards the 2 most important babies in his life. Gu Xingyin sat on a bench at the side and watched her husband and 2 children play on the merry-go-round. She couldn't play on this thing. She would feel dizzy the moment she sat on it, so she simply sat and watched the 3 of them play happily. Excuse me, are you Ning Zhao? A hesitant female voice sounded. Gu Xingyin heard this and looked over. The woman who spoke was wearing a cleaner's uniform. She wasn't bad looking, but her face had been carved with tired wrinkles under the ravages of time and life. He looked strangely familiar. Gu Xingyin pondered for a while and finally remembered who she was. Yang Huiying. Seeing Ning Zhao remember her, the woman breathed a sigh of relief. She smiled and said, "It's me. I didn't expect you to remember me." Gu Xingyin did not expect to see this woman again. After her mission was completed, the system would not be bound to her at all times after she was no longer threatened by the mission target. Instead, it would often enter a dormant state, so it did not prompt her earlier. Seeing Gu Xingyin's lukewarm reaction, Yang Huiying didn't care. Years of running around for a living had completely worn away her former sharpness. "I thought your back looked familiar. I didn't expect it to really be you." She looked at Ning Zhao and said sincerely, "I owe you an apology for what happened back then." Gu Xingyin did not expect that this woman would actually want to talk to her about this. She froze for a moment and then said, "Those things, let bygones be bygones." Knowing that the other party didn't want to talk to her, Yang Huiying smiled and walked away. From afar, she looked back and saw the man she used to like when she was young. He walked to Ning Zhao's side and the two of them leaned against each other intimately. She shook her head and smiled. Chapter 235. Gu Xingyin opened her eyes as she felt a warm sensation. Body of light. She was born with the body of light. She heard an excited voice in front of her. At the same time, she realized that the light came from her body. When the light dissipated, Gu Xingyin was respectfully led to the side by a few people in white robes. She realized that there were many girls here, and without exception, they were all looking at her with jealousy. Gu Xingyin already had the ability to keep a straight face in front of others. She sat down elegantly and looked forward, but in reality, she was reading the plot of this world. This was a world of magic. Like many other worlds, the two major factions in this world were light and dark. The light side always had the upper hand and firmly held the faith of all the people on the Wuxia continent. This was because the most powerful god in this world was the omnipotent god of light. The original owner, Hathaway Louise, was originally a royal princess of the Wuxia Empire. She was chosen by the Holy Church, the largest power in the Wuxia continent. Because she was born with the body of light, she successfully became the new saintess of the Holy Church. The saintess of the Holy Church was the spokesperson of the Holy Church. She had to have the purest faith of light. Her body and mind had to be loyal to the God of light. Hathaway was worthy of the title of Saintess of the Light. She spent almost all of her free time praying to God. In her eyes, God was omnipotent. God was her only faith. Even if God asked her to die immediately, she would do it without hesitation. The power of the believers of light came from the God of light. The stronger the faith, the stronger the power of light. Hathaway became one of the most powerful people on the Wuxia continent in a short period of time. She was supposed to be honorable and dazzling, but because of the jealousy of her maids, they schemed against her, causing Hathaway to be tainted by the power of darkness. She was no longer pure and flawless, and her glory as the saintess was taken away. Hathaway couldn't accept that she couldn't serve God anymore, so she chose to end her life. Heidi was the maid who framed Hathaway. She was originally a candidate for the Saintess of the Light, just like Hathaway. But in the end, the Holy See chose Hathaway. Among the remaining candidates, the two with the best qualifications became the Saintess' personal maids. Heidi was unwilling. In her eyes, she wasn't any worse than Hathaway. But in the end, Hathaway became a saintess who was on equal footing with the Pope, while she was just a lowly maid. If Hathaway wasn't around, wouldn't he have a chance? Gu Xingyin knew that the ending of this world was that after Hathaway died, Heidi did not succeed in ascending to the throne. Her heart had already been occupied by jealousy and had become extremely filthy. She couldn't even maintain her faith in light, so how could she become a saintess who wholeheartedly served the God of light? After receiving the plot, she couldn't help but want to facepalm. This body would become the saint of light in the future, which meant that her body and mind would belong to the God of light. She would have to remain pure and unblemished for the rest of her life. Chastity was also a prerequisite for a saint. Once the saintess lost her chastity, her body would no longer be pure, and her faith in light would be tainted. She would be discovered immediately. Gu Xingyin lit a candle for her lover in this world. Chapter 236. System, as the saintess of the light, I must have pure faith. I can't do that. What if I'm found out? Gu Xingyin frowned as she thought of this. The system said confidently, don't worry, I'll do it. Gu Xingyin felt as if the system had injected energy into the depths of her mind. After that, she realized that something was wrong with her. For example, she was currently sitting in the Holy Church of the Light. At the highest point of the Holy Church was the statue of the God of Light. When Gu Xingyin saw the statue, she had the urge to rush over and worship it. Gu Xingyin stopped herself with difficulty. She asked the system quietly, what did you do to me? The system said, it's a product of the system. It can gather the host's faith in a short period of time. Don't worry, the host will still maintain her original thoughts. You don't have to worry about being brainwashed. Gu Xingyin thought. Alright, in her eyes, the system is still very reliable. The primary selection of the light curia ended quickly. Gu Xingyin and the other 9 saintess candidates were brought to the largest church in the Aoqi continent, the Holy Church of Light. This was also the headquarters of the light curia in the Aoqi continent. It was said that a god had once descended here. It was said that the God of Light liked beautiful and exquisite objects. The entire Holy Church of Light shone brightly and was extremely beautiful. A few girls could not help but look around. One of them even let out a gasp of surprise. As a high-class saintess candidate, Gu Xingyin naturally did not look sideways the entire time. She perfectly demonstrated what it meant to be noble. The bishop who was leading them saw the reactions of the group and nodded to himself. As for the few people who exclaimed earlier, they were already on the list of candidates in his mind. Seeing such a small thing and making such a big fuss. As the saintess of the light curia, she would have to face many big situations in the future. In the future, she would represent the entire curia. If this happened elsewhere, the light curia would lose all its face. They were brought to the Holy Church's Holy Church. Gu Xingyin looked up and saw the high and mighty God of Light in front of her. The incomparably gorgeous man held a scepter in his hand and sat upright on a luxurious throne. His face was shrouded in a layer of divine light, and no one could see his face. Even so, this man had a kind of charm that made everyone unable to help but admire him. This was especially true for Gu Xingyin, who was currently being condensed with faith. She only felt that she was completely out of control as she walked straight towards the divine throne. Then, he knelt on the ground in a pious manner. O great Lord, I am your most loyal and devout believer. Please allow me to pray to you. She began to chant in a low voice. Everyone else was shocked. Even the bishop was confused by this development. He looked at the white-clothed woman kneeling before the divine throne and thought to himself, could it be that she did it on purpose? Did he purposely make such a gesture for the people of the Holy See? Thinking of this, the bishop felt that it was a pity. Originally, because she was born with the body of light, the scepter of the saintess of light would have fallen into her hands. However, he couldn't wait to prove himself as the god of the great cathedral of light. He wasn't just a decoration. In the high and mighty heavenly realm, countless rare flowers bloomed. The angels displayed their beautiful singing and moving dancing. All of this was for the man who was leaning on the throne with his eyes closed. Chapter 237. He had a face that even the most legendary sculptor in the entire Aoqi continent couldn't create. He just sat there quietly with his eyes closed, but no one could ignore his existence. The angels looked at him with undisguised longing and adoration. He seemed to feel something. His eyelids trembled slightly, and he opened his eyes. That pair of golden eyes was more dazzling than any light in the world. He felt a pure power of faith. It had been a long time since a believer gave him such a comfortable feeling. The God of Light curiously looked at the source of this faith. He saw a human girl with her head lowered in a devout manner as she prayed to his statue. The endless power of faith was coming from her body. The God of Light suddenly had a strong feeling. He felt that he should know her. He wanted to see what this girl looked like. The will of the God of Light was just a thought. Gu Xingyin quickly raised her head. The God of Light stared at her face. Her golden hair was carefully tied together and hung behind her head. On her forehead was a thin silver chain with a sparkling blue crystal. What was even clearer than the crystals were her eyes, which were as blue as the sky. It was as if everything in the world could be seen in her eyes. This girl had a beauty that even the heavenly realm angels couldn't reach. The God of Light frowned. He always felt that she shouldn't look like this. But if she didn't look like this, what should she look like? Long black hair. A thought appeared in his mind. Wait, isn't that the color of darkness? The God of Light laughed. No one could hide anything in front of the God. This girl was born with the body of light. She couldn't be related to the demons. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw that the girl had finished praying and was about to get up. At that moment, Gu Xingyin really wanted to cover her face. She actually started praying in front of so many people without any scruples. At that moment, those people from the Light Curia must have thought that she was an opportunist. She sighed. No matter what, she still had to fight for the position of saintess. Just as she was about to turn and leave, something strange happened. A bright light rose from the scepter in the hands of the statue and shot towards Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin's entire body was bathed in the rich power of light. This feeling was too comfortable, and she couldn't help but sigh. Looking at her satisfied expression, the God of Light chuckled. His eyes were filled with love that even he didn't know about. The angels in heavenly realm looked at each other. They did not know what had happened to make God so happy. Everyone in the great sage hall was stunned by this scene. Other than the bishops and saintess candidates who were originally with Gu Xingyin, there were also the pope and cardinals who had rushed over after sensing the abnormalities in the great cathedral. As soon as they entered, they saw Gu Xingyin, who was being baptized by divine light below the divine throne. God! The pope immediately knelt down. The rest of the people also came back to their senses and knelt on the ground. The God of Light ignored them. He sensed for a moment, and after confirming that his believer could not withstand any more power of light, he retracted the divine light. Gu Xingyin opened her eyes in confusion. Chapter 238. She had no idea what had just happened. System? She asked hesitantly. The system said, the host has received the love of the most powerful being in this world, the God of Light. Gu Xingyin thought to herself, it's really an unintentional thing. Now that the statue had returned to its original state, the Pope and the others stood up one by one. Gu Xingyin felt that the kind and holy Pope was looking at her as if he was looking at a rare treasure. She subconsciously walked towards him, and suddenly realized that her body seemed to have changed. The Pope seemed to know her doubts, and raised his hand to condense a light mirror with light magic, allowing Gu Xingyin to see herself in the mirror. Her facial features did not change, but on the fair forehead of the person in the mirror, there was a golden divine pattern that appeared out of nowhere. The pattern was complicated and beautiful, and it was shining. It made Hathaway's originally delicate face look even more beautiful and holy. This was the glory that God had bestowed upon his most beloved people. The Pope had already recovered, and he looked at Gu Xingyin with a smile. Child, are you Hathaway? Gu Xingyin bowed to him and nodded. The Pope, who had been observing Gu Xingyin all this time, felt very unhappy when he saw her gesture. Who in this world was worthy of her bow? The Pope seemed to have sensed something, and his feet moved slightly, and he dodged Gu Xingyin's bow. Looking at the surprised looks of the bishops behind him, the Pope did not explain. His attainment in light magic was close to that of a demigod, so he could naturally sense some things. When Gu Xingyin bowed to him, his intuition told him that if he accepted her bow, there would be terrible consequences. The status of the Holy See's saintess is comparable to this old man. Hathaway, you don't have to bow to me. The Pope said kindly to Gu Xingyin. This sentence directly acknowledged Gu Xingyin's status as the Holy Maiden. The cardinals behind him were not surprised at all. They all saw clearly that the God of Light had personally blessed the saintess, which meant that the saintess was a candidate that the God of Light approved and was even satisfied with. At this time, their opinions were no longer important. However, the other candidates did not think so. Why? Wasn't there another test later? We haven't even tried. Why should we be eliminated? A girl standing beside Heidi was not convinced. Heidi lowered her eyes and sneered in her heart. This idiot. Although she thought the same in her heart, she also knew that saying such words at a time like this was absolutely brainless behavior. As expected, the Pope's expression turned cold. He was polite to Gu Xingyin because she was the saintess who was favored by the God of Light. How dare this girl question the Holy See's decision? This is the will of the God of Light. If you have any questions, you can ask God. The girl was at a loss for words. Raise an objection to God. Just now, everyone saw that God was clearly very satisfied with Hathaway, and that was why he had personally blessed her. If she went to pray, God would not even give her a look. The matter of Gu Xingyin becoming the saintess of the Holy See was thus settled. Just like in the original plot, Heidi and another girl named Vivian became the saintess' personal maid. Chapter 239. The Pope held the scepter that symbolized the status and glory of the saintess and handed it over to Gu Xingyin. Everyone remained silent as they stared at this historic scene. The masters of oil painting and sculpting firmly engraved this scene in their minds. This kind of occasion was bound to be recorded in the annals of history and passed down to the world. However, a scene that no one had expected occurred. Gu Xingyin's hand hadn't even touched the scepter when that scepter made of the strongest and most precious material in the entire Ouchi continent shattered inch by inch. It fell to the ground and was burned to ashes by the golden god fire. Gu Xingyin, the Pope, there was only one person who could do this. Everyone looked at the high and mighty statue of the light god. Many people had already knelt down. The Pope looked at Gu Xingyin in confusion. Wasn't Hathaway the saintess who was favored by God? But if God really favored her, why did he destroy the scepter? After all, a saintess without a scepter wouldn't be recognized by the masses. Some nobles were already whispering that this saintess's faith wasn't pure and caused God's dissatisfaction. That was why she destroyed the saintess' scepter in anger. Some people were already shouting that they should severely punish Gu Xingyin, the saintess who caused God's dissatisfaction. This suggestion was actually approved by many people. Gu Xingyin glanced over and saw that the speaker was someone from the Aquamarine Empire. The Aquamarine Empire was a new empire and was famous for its belligerence. It had always been at odds with the oldest empire on the continent, the Ouchi Empire. Hathaway was the niece of the Ouchi Empire's emperor, so the people of the Aquamarine Empire naturally didn't want her to become the saintess. Unlike the people from the Aquamarine Empire who were gloating, the people from the Ouchi Empire were looking at Gu Xingyin with worry. Heidi lowered her head slightly, her eyes filled with schadenfreude. She couldn't wait for Gu Xingyin, the holy maiden, to be deposed. That way, she would have a better chance, wouldn't it? The Pope did not believe that this was because the gods were dissatisfied with the saintess. After all, the robe that Gu Xingyin was wearing was a gift from the God of Light. Gu Xingyin ignored everything around her. She just stood there quietly, as if she was waiting for a result. Sure enough, when the people of the Aquamarine Empire began to clamor, the high and mighty god finally responded. A golden light rose from the statue, and an illusory figure walked out from the statue. Many people felt a stinging pain in their eyes and had no choice but to lower their heads. Soon after, they realized who that person was. God's descent. The entire great cathedral fell to their knees. Even the Pope did the same. Only Gu Xingyin remained standing. It wasn't that she didn't want to kneel, but that she couldn't. The moment she saw the figure, her first reaction was the same as everyone else's. However, an inexplicable force held her back. The figure walked step by step through the void until it reached Gu Xingyin's side. The scepter of mortals is not worthy of your glory, my most devout believer. The god's low voice resounded in the great cathedral, resounding in everyone's hearts. Gu Xingyin looked at the figure in front of her in shock. It was just an illusory figure, but it seemed to have the power to destroy heaven and earth. No one doubted the true identity of the person in front of them. The God of Light. Chapter 240. The God of Light smiled as he looked at his follower's stunned face. Oh, he looks even better this way. He slowly raised his right hand, and a golden light gradually condensed in his hand. When the light dissipated, the item in his hand appeared in front of Gu Xingyin's eyes. It was a silver scepter. This is the glory I bestow upon you. The God of Light handed the scepter to Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin came back to her senses in a daze. She stretched out her hands and carefully received the scepter. The God of Light seemed to chuckle, and he slowly bent down. Gu Xingyin only felt a slight chill on her forehead. When she looked up, the God of Light's figure had already disappeared. My follower, be well and pass on my glory. Only these words were left, and they seemed to linger in her ears. Only when the God of Light's aura completely disappeared from the great cathedral did everyone dare to raise their heads. They looked at the Saint of Light standing alone on the high platform, and the noble scepter in her hand. Their eyes were filled with unconcealable respect and envy. The God of Light's glory and favor had reached this level. Who would dare to say anything about the status of the Saint of Light? The people of the Aquamarine Empire were extremely regretful of their previous words. The Pope was pleasantly surprised. A saint who was deeply loved by the gods had appeared in the Holy Church. This was clearly a good thing for the Holy Church, wasn't it? He couldn't suppress his joy as he announced, I declare that from today onwards, Hathaway Louise will be the most glorious and holy saint of light of the Holy Church. She will become the emissary of the God of Light, and bring the glory of the God of Light to every corner of the Ouchi continent. No one had the slightest objection. Heidi lowered her head. She was extremely jealous. Why? Why would the God of Light favor Hathaway so much? She was clearly a devout believer of the God of Light, wasn't she? When Gu Xingyin returned to her bedroom, she was still in a daze. System, tell me, why does the God of Light treat me so differently? She couldn't figure it out. The system said, this world is considered a high-level plane among the 3,000 worlds, and the God of Light is a powerful level 1 God. The most I can do is ensure that my existence is not discovered by him, but I can't find out what he's thinking. Gu Xingyin was a little excited. That's a god. I have never seen a god before. Unfortunately, I can't see his face. System. I hope this sentence won't be known by a certain existence. Gu Xingyin took out the scepter given to her by the God of Light. The entire scepter was silver-white in color, and its craftsmanship was exquisite. There was a huge blue crystal embedded at the top of the scepter. Even though it was placed there quietly, Gu Xingyin could feel the powerful light energy contained within it. According to Hathaway's memories, there wasn't any energy stone in Ouchi that could contain such a terrifying amount of energy. This was probably something from the realm of gods. Gu Xingyin glanced at the scepter, then looked at the beautiful robe she was wearing. She then thought of the noble and magnificent statue in the great Cathedral of Light. She silently complained to the system, "People say that the God of Light likes luxurious things, and now I really believe it." As far as the eye could see, there wasn't a single thing related to the gods that was low-key. Gu Xingyin, who also liked luxurious things deep down, smiled with sparkling eyes. "I can ride on such a coattail." Chapter 241. In just a few days, the news that the new Saint of Light, Hathaway, was deeply loved by the God of Light had spread throughout the entire Ouchi continent. Hathaway, the Emperor of the Deep Blue Empire, recently sent a secret letter asking for help. He said that their northern territory has been invaded by the demon race. It just so happens that you will be representing the Holy Church to visit the entire Ouchi continent. Why don't you go to the Deep Blue Empire first? Demon race? The demon race had been exiled by the god to the land of calamity opposite the Ouchi continent 10,000 years ago. They were separated by the abyss of death. How could they cross the abyss to reach the Ouchi continent? Gu Xingyin had no reason to refuse. 2 days later, she prepared to leave. When the Saint of Light went out, her entourage was naturally luxurious. Not only did the Holy Church send over 100 priests to follow her, but they also sent an entire Knights of Light to protect the Saint of Light. Accompanying the Saint of Light were 2 cardinals and several bishops. Even the Pope's entourage couldn't compare. Heidi walked in and whispered to Gu Xingyin, "Lady Saint, the commander of the Knights of Light, Sir Carlos, wishes to see you." Gu Xingyin noticed that her face was a bit red. "Let him in," Gu Xingyin said. When Carlos came in, Gu Xingyin knew why Heidi's face was so red. This commander of the Knights of Light was not only young, but also a rare handsome man. He had a head full of bright golden hair and deep blue eyes that were more mysterious than the sea. When he smiled, it was as if the entire hall was infected by him and became brighter. The Holy Church had 3 major knight regiments, the Knights of Light, the Holy Knights, and the Honorable Knights. Any one of the 3 knight regiments was at least a legend swordmaster. And to be the commander of the 3 knight regiments, one had to be at least a sword saint. Sword saints were already at the peak of the Ouchi continent's power. It was no wonder that Heidi was moved by such a handsome and powerful knight. "Good day, Saintess." Carlos entered and saluted Gu Xingyin with a knight's salute. "Good day, Sir Carlos." Gu Xingyin nodded at him. "The Knights of Light are ready." Gu Xingyin nodded. "I'm ready." The fact that the Holy Maiden of the Radiant Church was traveling in such a grand fashion was naturally known throughout the continent. Everywhere they went, there would be countless people begging to see the Saintess. However, Carlos blocked most of them. "Saintess, please don't blame me for acting on my own." Carlos came to Gu Xingyin to ask for forgiveness after the convoy stopped to rest. "Your Excellency Carlos has done well. Among these people, there are only a few who have firm beliefs." Hearing this, Carlos smiled in his heart. This Saintess was indeed as strong as the legend said. Her faith in the God of Light was extremely firm. There was almost no delay along the way as they arrived at the Deep Blue Empire. The Deep Blue Empire received the news a few days ago. His Majesty the Emperor brought all the royal family members to the city gate to welcome Gu Xingyin's arrival. God of Light. With Lady Saintess and everyone here, the crisis of my Deep Blue Empire will definitely be resolved. The Emperor of the Deep Blue Empire said emotionally. Host, when this person spoke, he didn't have any emotional fluctuations. The system reminded. Gu Xingyin glanced at the Emperor. Then he was acting. She didn't know what the Emperor had prepared for them to come to the Deep Blue Empire. He was waiting for her. Lady Saintess, the Deep Blue Empire is holding a welcome banquet for you. Heidi walked in. Her hostility towards Gu Xingyin had decreased by a lot. The reason was simple, Saintesses couldn't marry and couldn't like anyone. As the Saintess maid, she didn't have this restriction. Looking at Carlos, she was glad that she wasn't chosen at that time. Chapter 242. The main character of the banquet was undoubtedly Gu Xingyin. Apart from her, the other cardinals were also the focus of attention. On the other hand, the attention of the noble ladies was completely focused on the handsome knights. Especially Carlos, who was handsome, charming, elegant, and powerful. Naturally, he was the most popular existence. Unfortunately, to the disappointment of all the ladies, Sir Carlos turned a blind eye to all the ambiguous expressions of goodwill. The focus of the entire banquet was always on Gu Xingyin. If not for the fact that the Saint of Light was destined to be unable to marry, these noble ladies would have thought that there was an unspeakable relationship between the two. Your Excellency Saintess, these places are the important areas of the Deep Blue Empire that have been invaded by the demon race. After the banquet, the Emperor of the Deep Blue Empire began to talk business with Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin took a look. Sure enough, it was the two northernmost cities of the Deep Blue Empire. The information provided by the Emperor was not false. The situation was exactly the same as what the Holy See had secretly investigated. I will set off for the Icefield City tomorrow. These demons who have betrayed the Light God will receive the most severe punishment. Gu Xingyin's voice revealed a murderous intent. Then, thank you, Your Excellency Saintess. The Emperor of the Deep Blue Empire had a grateful expression. On the way back, Gu Xingyin secretly thought, the Emperor of the Deep Blue Empire's purpose could not be so simple. However, since she had been baptized by divine power, her magic power had reached the level of a warlock saint. Moreover, she had a powerhouse like Carlos and two cardinals by her side. Even if she encountered a dangerous situation, there would be no problem for her to escape unscathed. Then, since that was the case, why not go to the Icefield City as he wished? What's more, this trip, whether she was willing or not, she had to go. The convoy only stayed in the imperial capital of the Deep Blue Empire for a day before setting off for the Icefield City. The Emperor of the Deep Blue Empire smiled as he watched the convoy leave. His eyes were filled with emotions that no one could understand. Carlos seemed to have felt something and looked back from afar. He did not say anything and continued to be his most loyal knight, guarding the Saintess. Icefield City. When Gu Xingyin got out of the car, even though she was mentally prepared, she was still shocked by the scene in front of her. The entire city was shrouded in a black mist. Gu Xingyin, who was born with the radiant body, was especially sensitive to the power of darkness. Almost instantly, she sensed the dense aura of the demon clan. The city was in a state of desolation. There was no one on either side of the road, and the doors of every house were tightly shut. There was no trace of life. Someone seemed to have seen them from afar and walked over to greet them. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man with a thin face. He was wearing a robe that was neither new nor old. When he saw Gu Xingyin, he was overjoyed. The city lord of Icefield City, Kerman, welcomes the Saintess. Gu Xingyin looked behind him. There were only a few people. She raised her eyebrows but did not say anything. Instead, she asked another question. How's the situation in your Icefield City? City Lord Kerman smiled bitterly. The demon clan attacks almost every 3 to 5 days. Almost 90% of the soldiers in our Icefield City have died in battle. Now, there are only some old, weak, sick, and disabled left in the city. Moreover, due to the invasion of the demon Qi, the people in the city often fall ill and their physiques are weak. Now, the Icefield City is almost waiting for death. Chapter 243. Before Komen could finish his words, an ear-piercing alarm sounded. His complexion changed as he exclaimed, "Oh no, there's another demon invasion." Gu Xingyin's expression turned solemn. The moment before Carlos gave the order, she raised the scepter in her hand high. A dazzling white light rose from the tip of her scepter and gradually spread throughout the entire icefield city. The Great Purification Spell. The eyes of the two red-robed bishops lit up as they looked at Gu Xingyin in shock. The Great Purification Spell was one of the most powerful forbidden spells of light magic. Only saints could cast it. The two red-robed bishops could also cast this spell, but they could not cover the entire icefield city like Gu Xingyin. Didn't this mean that the Holy Maiden, at such a young age, had already surpassed the two of them who had been immersed in light magic for hundreds of years? The two of them looked at each other, their expressions filled with shock and surprise. In any case, as the Holy Maiden of the Holy Sea, Gu Xingyin's strength was a good thing for the Holy Sea. Screams rang out one after another. Gu Xingyin knew that this was the final struggle of the demons. Great Purification was the most tyrannical forbidden spell of all light magic. Great Purification, as the name implied, was that all dark, impure, and things rejected by light would be dissolved in the light of the Great Purification spell. Komen looked at the black fog that had covered the entire icefield city for several months disappearing in the white light. The sky of the icefield city finally returned to its previous clear state. He almost burst into tears. "Thank you, Holy Maiden." He bowed deeply to Gu Xingyin. The followers behind him also followed suit and bowed to Gu Xingyin. "You're welcome. It's my duty to kill the demons and destroy the darkness," Gu Xingyin said with a smile. At this time, Carlos suddenly spoke, "I wonder if Mayor Komen has prepared a place for us to rest." "Holy Maiden, you've traveled a long way. It's better for you to rest." Mayor Komen nodded repeatedly, "It's already prepared. It's my fault." He quickly led Gu Xingyin and the others to the prepared accommodation. Carlos stood beside Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin looked at him gratefully. After the people of Komen left, Gu Xingyin breathed a sigh of relief. She sat down and smiled at Carlos, "Thank you." Carlos looked serious, "Holy Maiden, there's no need to show off. It's just a few low-level demons. The Knights of Light can deal with them." Gu Xingyin shook his head. "You should be able to tell that the people of Komen City are all frightened. If I can't convince them with my strength, I'm afraid it will be difficult to win their trust." Carlos said stiffly, "Even so, you shouldn't risk your body. I was ordered to protect you, so I have the responsibility to ensure your safety." Gu Xingyin looked tired, "I'm just a little exhausted." "All right, Carlos, you can leave first. Let me rest for a while." Carlos seemed to want to say something, but when he saw Gu Xingyin's pale face, he swallowed his words and went out quietly. "The system said, that human cares a lot about you. Your attitude is so cold." Gu Xingyin closed her eyes, "It's because he cares too much about me that I have to do this." Since there was no result, she would kill him before he sprouted. Chapter 244. "Sir Carlos, this is the Qianlin fruit I just got. Would you like to try it?" Heidi saw Carlos standing alone at the door and asked with a blushing face. Carlos shook his head and said, "I don't need to thank you. The Saintess used a lot of magic power earlier. Go and see if she needs it." Heidi's face turned pale, and she whispered yes. Her hands clenched tightly around the tray. Again. She had been glad that she was not the Saintess, so she had the opportunity to get in touch with the person she liked. But what about Carlos? His gaze had always been on Saintess Hathaway, and he had never looked at anyone else. If she was the Saintess at that time, would Carlos only have her in his heart and in his eyes, just like now? Gu Xingyin inexplicably received a system prompt that Heidi's dislike of her had increased. She was a little irritated. "When the matter in Icefield City is settled, I will get rid of Heidi." At the moment, she was meditating to restore the magic power in her body. With her current level, it was actually very stressful for her to cast such a large-scale great purification. She had just used a trick. The scepter given to her by the god of light was not only beautiful, but also rich in the power of light. It could be used as a cheating device at a critical moment. However, even with the enhancement of the scepter, the mana in her body was almost depleted by the terrifying output of the Great Purification spell. Carlos had also noticed this, which was why he had asked the Castellan to bring them here for a rest. Gu Xingyin, who closed her eyes, did not notice that when she was meditating, the scepter on the side flashed with a faint golden light. The power of light flowed from the scepter into her body, replenishing her magic power. So when Gu Xingyin opened her eyes and found that her body had recovered to its peak state, she was shocked. The system faintly added, "The scepter given to you by the god of light." Gu Xingyin, so that's how it is. It is worthy of being a product of the gods. It is simply a must-have. At night, when Gu Xingyin appeared in the city lord's mansion, as expected, it was already filled with people. Those who had closed their doors during the day had now tidied themselves up and came to pay a visit to the saintess who had single-handedly dispelled the haze that had shrouded the ice-field city for months. The moment they saw Gu Xingyin come out, many of them knelt down spontaneously. Lord Komen explained awkwardly, "Saintess, it's not that they don't want to come out during the day. It's just that our people are really scared." Gu Xingyin interrupted him, "I know. City Lord Kerman, please don't mind, I understand." She looked around the big square of the city lord's mansion, and her voice, which contained the power of light, faintly resounded over the ice-field city. "The god of light will not give up on any of his people. I came here under the will of the god to destroy the invading demons. Where the light shines, the haze should not exist." Her voice was full of the power of faith. The people of the ice-field city seemed to be infected by her words and shouted together with her, "Where the light shines, the haze should not exist. Where the light shines, the haze should not exist." Carlos looked at the woman standing in front of the crowd with a determined expression, and a thought that he had never had before welled up in his mind. Chapter 245. "Milady Holy Maiden, we didn't discover anything out of the ordinary," Carlos said to Gu Xingyin. Hearing this, Gu Xingyin frowned. This shouldn't be the case. At this time, she was investigating the outskirts of Icefield City with Carlos and a small team of Knights of Light. Because the matter was rather secretive, Gu Xingyin didn't bring many people with her. But the result of the investigation was abnormal. In the entire outskirts of Icefield City, they couldn't find a single trace of the demons. Because Gu Xingyin had used the Great Purification technique, the aura of the demons had been completely removed. The current situation meant that after that, no more demons had come to Icefield City. Gu Xingyin wasn't so naive as to believe that the only demons harassing the Deep Blue Empire were the ones she had destroyed. She was certain that the demons had some way to conceal their tracks. Perhaps, they just wanted to temporarily avoid the limelight of the Holy Church. This time, the investigation came to an end without any results. The group returned to Icefield City. "Carlos," Gu Xingyin said to Carlos. 2 days later, because the demons had been wiped out, the Radiant Church's army left Icefield City, heading to another city that had been harassed by the demons, Icefield City. But contrary to everyone's expectations, on the 3rd day after the Radiant Church's army left, Icefield City was once again attacked by the demons. The power of darkness once again enveloped the entire city. "Follow them." In the darkness, 2 pairs of eyes coldly stared at the black-haired demons. These 2 people were Gu Xingyin and Carlos. The Radiant Church's departure from Icefield City was just a pretense. In fact, Gu Xingyin had long expected that the demons wouldn't give up just like that. So, she simply beat them at their own game and pretended to leave this place. She and Carlos were secretly guarding this place, waiting for the demons to arrive. Gu Xingyin watched as the demons arrived at a deserted house in the northeast corner of Icefield City. The few demons vigilantly glanced around, then began to chant an obscure incantation. Gradually, following their voices, a dark red light lit up in the empty space between them, gradually forming a door of light the size of an adult. Without hesitation, the few devils stepped into the light gate and disappeared from the room. Gu Xingyin and Carlos looked at each other. This was clearly a special teleportation formation. Seeing that the dark red wooden door was about to disappear, Gu Xingyin stepped in without hesitation. Carlos watched the slender figure disappear and followed her in. Beep. Gu Xingyin was startled by the system's voice. Destroy the demon's conspiracy and stop Diablo from reviving. There's such a setting for random missions. The system explained seriously, under normal circumstances, random quests will not appear. Don't worry, although this mission seems difficult, the system has checked the data and found that the completion rate of the mission is 100%. The difficulty of the mission is low. Gu Xingyin was speechless. If the system had not always been reliable, she would have suspected that it was lying to her. Stop Diablo from reviving. Such a difficult and dangerous mission was actually low in difficulty and had a 100% completion rate. Could it be that Diablo was already dead and had no chance of being resurrected? Gu Xingyin complained as she found that she had been teleported to a strange place. Chapter 246. The air here was damp and gloomy. The sky here was always overcast, and no light could be seen. The feeling this place gave off was cold, gloomy, and hopeless. The power of darkness that assaulted them made Gu Xingyin feel as if she couldn't breathe. She was born with the body of light, so she had a natural aversion to this place. The land of doom. Gu Xingyin quickly understood what this place was based on the memories in his mind. This was exactly the same as the land of calamity that God had used to banish the demons. Carlos, who had followed closely behind, had an unsightly expression. Clearly, he had also realized what this place was. The two of them realized the severity of the situation. The demons actually already had a teleportation formation to leave the land of calamity. Didn't this mean that the shackles of the endless abyss no longer existed for the demons? As long as the demons were willing, they could come to the Wuxia continent at any time. In other words, the citizens of the Wuxia continent were in danger of being attacked by the demons at any time. Two honored guests, welcome to the land of calamity. A feminine voice sounded in this land. Gu Xingyin raised her head. A demon with long dark purple hair appeared in front of the two of them. A high-ranked demon. Gu Xingyin looked at this handsome demon with two horns on his head. The demon race was divided into ranks. The higher the rank of the demon race, the more handsome they would be. Moreover, the distinctive feature of a high-level demon race was that they would grow a pair of demon horns on their heads, which meant that their bloodline and strength were very powerful. The Holy Maiden of the Light Church, commander of the Knights of Light. The high-grade fiend smiled faintly. The innate charm of the demon race filled his face with a unique androgynous charm. Gu Xingyin's heart trembled. He had discovered their existence so quickly, and even called out their names so clearly. It was very likely that they had been discovered as soon as they arrived. Her expression turned cold. The demons have been banished to the land of calamity, and will never be able to enter the Wuxia continent. This is God's will. Are you demons trying to go against God's will? God. The demon sneered, in the eyes of the God of light, there are only his believers. He only detests us demons. He is not a god of our demon race. He looked at Gu Xingyin and Carlos with bloodthirsty eyes. Just nice. A holy maiden of the luminous church and a commander of the Knights of Light. I'll capture you and use you as sacrifices for my God to return to the human world. As his voice fell, countless demons rushed out from the darkness and attacked the two of them. Carlos unsheathed his sword immediately. Saintess, stand behind me. Gu Xingyin raised her scepter. I am not a woman who can only hide behind others in times of danger. Carlos was stunned for a moment before he smiled and said, all right, Carlos is fortunate to be able to fight alongside the Holy Maiden. The power of light that was incompatible with the land of calamity surged out, burning and corroding those low-level demons, and turning them into ashes in the worst case. It looked like the two of them were crushing the demons, but in reality, Gu Xingyin knew that the situation was not good. There was an endless stream of demons in the land of calamity, but she and Carlos had no way of absorbing the power of light to replenish themselves. If this continued, the two of them would die sooner or later. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but complain, "System, didn't you say that the difficulty of the mission was very easy and that the completion rate was 100%? Chapter 247. The system said, "The difficulty of this mission is indeed simple." Gu Xingyin's body flickered, and a holy light technique flew over, burning a demon that attacked from behind into ashes. The system was speechless. It silently took back its words, and hid in a corner, pretending to be dead. Gu Xingyin thought. "After knowing you for so long, you're actually this kind of system." The land of Cataclysm was the main camp of the demons, and the two could only feel more and more demons swarming over. This could not go on. The two looked at each other, and retreated as they fought. Unfortunately, the land of Cataclysm was an oracle from the God of Light, and was used to banish the demons, using the endless abyss to separate it from the Wuxia continent. They did not know what method the demons used to cross the endless abyss to teleport to the Wuxia continent, but Gu Xingyin and Carlos could not return to the Wuxia continent at this time. 2 days later. Gu Xingyin was close to exhaustion. Carlos's expression was still calm, and there was no sign of exhaustion, but Gu Xingyin knew that his situation was not much better than hers. In front of them was an endless demon army, and behind them was a bottomless endless abyss, like a man-eating monster. The high-level demon looked at the two of them with a smile, as if he was looking at two rabbits that had fallen into his net. Gu Xingyin knew that the demon was toying with them. From beginning to end, not a single high-level demon made a move, and the low-level demons used their lives to force the two of them into a desperate situation. Gu Xingyin did not know how many demons had died at her hands in these 2 days. "The two of you, since things have come to this, follow me obediently. Speaking of which, you are lucky to be able to witness the resurrection of our great God with your own eyes." The demon was not at all worried that the two of them would resist. There was no light energy in the land of Cataclysm, and the two of them had no way to replenish their energy. "Resurrect the God of Destruction." Gu Xingyin laughed coldly. "The God of Light is omnipotent, and your goal will never be realized." Carlos looked at Gu Xingyin with a complicated expression, as if he did not expect her to still have such firm faith in the God of Light at this time. "Omnipotent?" The demon sneered. "If your God is truly omnipotent, then why are you in such a predicament now?" Gu Xingyin seemed to be disdainful of him. "Don't try to shake my faith with these useless words." She glanced at Carlos and suddenly said, "My scepter still has some power of light left. I will try to use it to tear the space here later. Take this opportunity to leave. If you can return to the Wuxia continent, you must tell the Holy See about the demon's scheme. If, then let's leave everything to fate." Carlos's expression changed. "What about you?" Gu Xingyin smiled but did not speak. The scepter in her hand blazed with light, and the rich light energy made the approaching demons retreat. "Is this divine power?" The high-grade devilish being's expression changed. The incomparably powerful light divine power brazenly tore a crack in the space of the land of doom. "Let's go," Gu Xingyin urged. Carlos did not move, and only looked at her deeply. "If I leave, what will you do?" "Gu Xingyin, in my current state, I definitely won't be able to withstand the spatial crack. Don't worry, I have the ability to protect myself." Carlos did not believe her words at all. The two of them had been forced to this point. If she really had the ability to protect herself, would she have waited until now to reveal it? Chapter 248. Actually, Gu Xingyin wasn't lying to him. She had the system and the main character's luck, so it wasn't easy for her to die. However, Carlos didn't know this at all. He only thought that Gu Xingyin wanted him to leave while he was prepared to die. Gu Xingyin saw that Carlos was about to dawdle again. Her power of light was about to be used up, so she couldn't help but feel anxious. If she continued like this, the demons would kill her. She steeled her heart and directly jumped into the endless abyss behind her. Hurry up and leave. Don't make me jump for nothing. Carlos's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. She really jumped down without any hesitation. With a thought, an imperceptible golden light fell into the endless abyss. Carlos ignored the spatial crack that was about to close beside him. He looked at the countless demons in front of him with an expressionless face. The high-level demon was still sighing. As expected of the Saintess. It's a pity that the leader doesn't seem to appreciate it. Before he could finish speaking, cold sweat flowed down his face. The man in front of him didn't know when, but his blue eyes had turned completely golden. All the demons in the land of entrapment felt an endless amount of pressure. The low-level demons couldn't resist anymore and all knelt on the ground. The high-level demon was still holding on, but when Carlos glanced at him, he couldn't hold on anymore and fell to the ground. You want to revive Philosai? A low voice came from Carlos's mouth. The purple-haired demon was already trembling. He didn't dare to answer. How naive. Do you think that you can fight against me just because you revive him? Carlos didn't need him to answer. He was talking to himself. Originally, for the balance between light and dark, I had already given you a way out. I couldn't be bothered with your little tricks. However, you shouldn't have. He didn't continue speaking. Instead, he looked at the endless abyss with a gentle expression. Since you've been causing trouble for so many years, I don't think there's a need to let you run around in the dark. He gently raised his hand, and an incomparably beautiful light slowly condensed in his hand. The terrifying power caused the space here to continuously collapse. The purple-haired devilish being finally couldn't help but yell, "You forced us to do this. The God of Light. As the ruler of this continent, you are known to shine in every corner. But what about us? Have we, the devil race, ever enjoyed the slightest bit of kindness from you?" The God of Light looked down at him. From the moment you were born, you were destined to oppose the light. Do you dare to accept my gift? The purple-haired demon was speechless. Not only was the light god's gift not a favor to the demon race, but it was also the sound of death. 10,000 years ago, when the war between the light and the dark ended and Philosai died, it was destined that there would be no more demons on this continent. The God of Light turned around and ignored the demons behind him. A golden beam of light that could break through the darkness of the land of doom for tens of thousands of years broke through the sky, burning all the darkness and evil into ashes. Endless soft halos of light sprinkled down from the sky, revealing the endless abyss that had never seen light before. A speck of golden light floated slightly. If one walked closer to take a look, they would discover that it was a barrier of light, and a figure was sleeping inside. The God of Light quietly stared at the peaceful Gu Xingyin. After a long time, he bent down and picked her up. Chapter 249. Gu Xingyin woke up to a strange fragrance. She opened her eyes and saw a beautiful scene that she had never seen before. Countless flowers that she could not name were blooming passionately, and the fragrance came from them. But this was not what surprised her. Those people, with wings dancing gracefully in the air, sitting elegantly on a harp, were her eyes playing tricks on her? She blinked and called out to the system. "Host, there is no need to doubt. You are now in the heavenly realm of this world." The system replied. Heavenly realm? Hathaway's memory came online. Wasn't this the legendary place where the gods lived? Then those Gu Xingyin looked at those people with snow-white wings. Were they really angels? Did she fail her mission and come to the heavenly realm after dying in the endless abyss? Gu Xingyin started to worry if she had failed her mission. Before the system could speak, it sensed something and shut its mouth. The God of Light looked at his believer sitting there in shock, obviously not understanding the situation in front of him. He waved his hand to dismiss the curious angels and walked to the side of Gu Xingyin, who was still in a daze. Gu Xingyin sensed the person's aura and looked over subconsciously. Then, she was stunned. She had never seen such a good-looking person. No, it should be God. Even if Gu Xingyin had never seen the true face of the God of Light before, at this moment, she could confirm with one look that this strange man was the God of Light. The power of faith that the system gathered for her showed its effect. Almost at the same time that she recognized the God of Light, Gu Xingyin became excited. She opened her mouth slightly, and her delicate little face was full of confusion. She stared at the man in front of her, as if she could not believe that she was lucky enough to see God. For a moment, she even forgot to bow. Fortunately, the God of Light did not pursue her improper behavior. In fact, he was in a good mood to see his usually gentle and calm believer staring at him in a daze. This was also a kind of affirmation of her charm, wasn't it? The chuckle from the God of Light brought Gu Xingyin back to her senses. Her face flushed red as she hurriedly got up to apologize. The God of Light extended a hand to support her. No need to be so courteous. A familiar lotus fragrance lingered around Gu Xingyin's body. She was a little stunned. The lover of this life was actually a god. Shocked once again, Gu Xingyin followed the God of Light's instructions and sat back down. The God of Light laughed as he looked at the silly look on his follower's face. He looked extremely obedient, and there was no trace of the vigor he had when he sacrificed himself to save his companions in the land of woe. Thinking of this, the God of Light became unhappy again. Although Carlos was just one of his incarnations, the God of Light was still upset at the thought of her dying to save him. A noble god would never admit to being jealous of himself. Gu Xingyin finally digested the fact that her lover was her boss. She looked at the God of Light again, and her mood became inexplicably better. With such a cheat in hand, in this world, what mission would she have to worry about not being able to complete? No wonder the system said those words before. The God of Light saw her sneaking a glance at him, and then she sat there alone, pursing her lips and smiling. Her little face was flushed red. His mood also became better. Chapter 250. God. Gu Xingyin suddenly thought of something and her expression changed. I had a companion who went to the land of calamity with me. How is he now? The space-time crack was extremely unstable. She didn't know how Carlos was doing. The God of Light hesitated. Gu Xingyin's expression suddenly became nervous. The God of Light originally wanted to tease her, but seeing Gu Xingyin's slightly pale face, he couldn't bear to make her sad. His figure suddenly changed. His ankle-length hair shrunk to his waist, and his golden eyes turned azure. His face also gradually changed into the one Gu Xingyin was familiar with. I am here, Saintess. Carlos smiled at her. Gu Xingyin witnessed all these changes. It would be strange if she didn't understand. There was no Carlos. He was clearly the incarnation of the God of Light. Carlos, it's you. Gu Xingyin asked. As you can see. The God of Light smiled and returned to his original appearance. Seeing Gu Xingyin's shocked expression, the God of Light once again threw out a bombshell. Carlos admires Hathaway. Do you know about this? Gu Xingyin's face suddenly turned red. Of course she knew about this. However, if it was just Carlos, she would definitely reject him without hesitation. However, Carlos was the God of Light, what should she say? The God of Light didn't give her a chance to answer. he spoke again. I, the god of light, Ulysses, love you. Are you willing to accept my feelings? The world of gods was just that simple and crude. He was never stingy with letting her know what he liked. No citizen of the Wuxia continent would refuse the love of the god of light. As a saintess who wholeheartedly served the god of light, Hathaway naturally wouldn't refuse. For Gu Xingyin, she had already accepted countless confessions from her lover. Everything developed naturally. When Gu Xingyin was hugged by the overjoyed god of light, she was still in a daze, thinking that this development was too fast. After that, the passion of a certain 10,000-year-old virgin made her unable to think about anything else. Gu Xingyin's first thought when she woke up was that the energy of a god was indeed incomparable to that of an ordinary mortal. She had no idea how long she had slept. His body was still a little sore. Thinking about it, he knew that there were definitely many scars on his body. At this moment, she was lying in a familiar embrace. Their skin was pressed against each other, and their warmth blended together. Gu Xingyin missed this feeling very much. She opened her eyes and was met with a pair of dazzling golden eyes. God! She was attracted by those abnormally beautiful eyes and couldn't help but want to reach out and touch them. The god of light allowed her hand to play tricks on his face. Call me Ulysses. Gu Xingyin blushed, but she still obediently called out, Ulysses. The god of light smiled. Out of respect, mortals had always called him God and did not dare to call him by his name. However, at this moment, hearing these words from Gu Xingyin's mouth made him feel extremely comfortable. The two of them put on their clothes, and the god of light walked through the heavenly realm with Gu Xingyin. The angels looked curiously at the mortal who was being gently held by the god. In their heavenly realm, there had never been a mortal. Gu Xingyin smiled at them. She could feel that there was no malice in their gazes. The angels were innocent and flawless, and they were abnormally beautiful. It was difficult for people to have a bad impression of them. The angels were especially sensitive to good and evil. They felt Gu Xingyin's kindness to them. Soon, angels flapped their wings and brought Gu Xingyin flowers, fruits, nectar, and other gifts. Seeing Gu Xingyin get along well with the little fellows he created and almost forget about him, a certain god of light's expression turned ugly again. Chapter 251. A certain possessive god secretly warned the angels, and they all left as if they were frightened. What's going on? Gu Xingyin was puzzled. The god of light said casually, oh, maybe they all have things to do. Gu Xingyin was suspicious, but she didn't ask any more questions. The two of them spent a few days in heavenly realm without any sweetness until Gu Xingyin proposed to leave. You still want to go back to the Wuxia continent? The god of light frowned, and seemed unhappy. The two of them had just established their relationship, and it was a sweet time. It was no wonder he was unhappy. I'm the Holy Virgin of the Light Church. I can't just disappear without a trace. Gu Xingyin didn't forget about Heidi's mission. Seeing that her lover was still unhappy, Gu Xingyin had to coax him, anyway, you can see me whenever you want, and you can see me whenever you miss me, right? After coaxing and pestering, the man finally relented. However, before Gu Xingyin left the heavenly realm, he still gave her a hard time. Gu Xingyin was still gnashing her teeth when she returned. Gu Xingyin's return was no doubt a relief to the church's personnel. The Holy Virgin had mysteriously disappeared in the Icefield city, and they could only block the news and secretly send people to investigate. Now, she was finally back. And this time, Gu Xingyin came back with good news. From now on, the Wuxia continent will no longer be threatened by the demon race. This news made everyone rejoice. After the church's personnel confirmed that there were no more demon race auras in the two cities, they began their journey back. During this time, no one asked about Carlos. Gu Xingyin also secretly asked around, and found that no one had any impression of this former commander of the Knights of Light. Saintess, the bath is ready. Heidi walked in quietly. Gu Xingyin loosened his guard and let her take off his robe. Suddenly, he thought of something and said, "You go out. I'll do it myself." Heidi lowered her eyes and left. The moment she closed the door, her eyes revealed undisguised shock. Just now, when she was undressing the holy maiden, she clearly saw that there were two ambiguous red marks on her delicate and fair neck. Such marks were obviously proof of love between a man and a woman. Heidi felt her heart beating like a drum. She was a little nervous, but more than that, she was excited. It was obvious that the holy maiden had encountered something extraordinary during the days she had been missing. If the holy maiden was no longer chaste, Heidi felt her whole body become excited. On the other side, Gu Xingyin was cursing a certain man's lack of self-control in her heart. The marks on her body were, of course, bestowed by the god of light. Not only did that man like to leave marks on her body, he also domineeringly refused to allow her to use magic to remove them. She had almost been seen just now. She let out a long sigh. "Are you cursing me in your heart?" A low voice came from behind her. At the same time, accompanied by the sound of flowing water, a body emitting heat pressed against her. "Why are you here?" Gu Xingyin was surprised. "Didn't you say that if I miss you, I can come and see you any time?" The man chuckled. Gu Xingyin was speechless. Her next words were drowned out by the man's lips. Poor Gu Xingyin. The marks on her body had not been removed, and now there were more. Chapter 252. When Gu Xingyin came out of the shower, it was already a few hours later. The man had already left after her repeated requests. Heidi and Vivian walked in, and Vivian quickly took out a soft towel to dry her long hair. Heidi stood aside, wanting to say something. "What's the matter?" Gu Xingyin looked up at her and felt that her expression was a little strange. Heidi stood aside and glanced at Gu Xingyin. The woman who had just finished showering had a faint pink spread on her exposed skin, perhaps because of the steam. The layer of holy and dazzling halo in the daytime faded away, and the delicate and flawless face was exposed without reservation. This kind of appearance was indeed very tempting. Heidi sneered in her heart, and said softly, "I'm just a little curious, Saintess, what have you experienced these days?" Gu Xingyin thought of the days when she was in the heavenly realm with the god of light a few days ago, and only felt a little hot on her face. She coughed dryly and said, "It's just a small matter, there's nothing to say." Heidi looked at her jade face covered with pink, and was even more certain of her guess. She continued, "These days, Vivian and I were very worried about your safety, Saintess. Fortunately, you came back safely. Can you just casually pick one or two things to tell us?" Gu Xingyin frowned. Does this Heidi not understand what she meant? "I said I don't want to talk about it, but she's still here. And she's worried about my safety?" Gu Xingyin would believe it if she said that Vivian, this simple girl, was worried about her. Heidi was worried about me? She probably wants me to disappear forever and never come back. She glanced at Heidi and was about to speak, but the Saintess's supporter, Vivian, spoke first. "Heidi, how can you talk to the Saintess like that? The Saintess has already said that she has nothing to say. What do you want to hear?" Vivian was simple, but she was definitely not stupid. She always knew that her companion was not reconciled. She thought that after a long time, Heidi would admit the truth, but she didn't expect that after so long, she still didn't give up. Heidi was embarrassed to continue asking after being scolded by Vivian. She looked at Vivian and sneered in her heart. So protective of Hathaway. When you find out that this so-called Saintess has long lost her pure faith, let's see if you will regret your foolishness today. Gu Xingyin received a system notification. Heidi's hatred towards him continued to rise. He knew that she was preparing to deal with him. System, keep an eye on Heidi. I want to see what she's up to. Don't worry, host. Leave it to this system. The system was quite happy that it could be of use. With the 24-hour monitoring system, Gu Xingyin soon understood what Heidi had been doing these days. Inquiring about the past deposed saintesses and the consequences of being abandoned by the Holy See because they lost their chastity. The conditions for succeeding the saintess. Gu Xingyin received the messages from the system one by one. She closed her eyes and pondered for a moment. Suddenly, she recalled the day when Heidi undressed her. So that's how it is. He was afraid that she had discovered something. It was all a man's fault. Gu Xingyin hated it. However, it was good to beat her at her own game. Framing the Saintess of Light was a serious crime in the Holy See, enough to be punished with capital punishment. Letting the system continue to keep an eye on Heidi, Gu Xingyin began to silently wait for this woman to court death. Chapter 253. Heidi didn't do anything for the next half a month. Gu Xingyin knew that she hadn't given up. She was just waiting for the right opportunity. When the crown prince of the Wuxia Empire was born, the emperor personally came to ask the Holy See for his blessing. The emperor of the Wuxia Empire was Hathaway's uncle, so the crown prince could be considered her brother. When the pope came to ask for Gu Xingyin's opinion, Gu Xingyin agreed without hesitation that she would personally bless the crown prince. The ambassador from the Wuxia Empire left happily. Everyone knew that the higher the status of the person who blessed a newborn, the more blessings the child would receive from the gods. Now, in the entire Radiant Church, even the Pope might not necessarily be a match for the Holy Maiden in terms of divine favor. Everyone knew that the Saintess's scepter was personally bestowed by the God of Light. On the day of the Crown Prince's 1-month-old birthday, all the nobles of the Wuxia Empire came to the palace. Gu Xingyin took a bath and changed her clothes. After praying, she went to the main hall. She wore the long robe filled with the power of light given by the God of Light. Holding the scepter personally carved by the god, she went to the crown prince's side. The rich power of light began to gather at his fingertips. Just as Gu Xingyin was about to open his mouth to bless the newly born crown prince, a female voice suddenly came from behind. Wait! This woman doesn't deserve to bless His Royal Highness. Everyone turned to look at the source of the voice in surprise. The Saintess's maid? Many people recognized Heidi based on her clothes. How dare you? Heidi, do you know what you're saying? Vivian was the first to react and scolded her. The emperor of the Wuxia Empire also looked at Heidi unhappily. It was such an honor for the Saintess to bless her son. What on earth was this woman doing? Heidi sneered inwardly under everyone's questioning and condemning gazes. You're all so protective of her now. You'll regret it when you find out the truth. She stepped out of the crowd and looked at Gu Xingyin with disdain. I said that Hathaway Louise doesn't deserve to bless the crown prince. She doesn't deserve to be the Saintess of the Holy See. Impudent. The members of the Radiant Church who had come with Gu Xingyin were furious. Openly challenging the authority of the Holy Maiden was a taboo. Gu Xingyin stood in the crowd, looking calm as if Heidi wasn't talking about her. Such self-cultivation made many people admire him endlessly. Heidi looked at this woman who was putting on an act. Humph, let's see if you can still pretend to be so hypocritical later. Honorable Saintess, do you dare to swear to the God of Light that you are still chaste? Heidi stared straight at Gu Xingyin. Sure enough, Gu Xingyin had expected her to do this. Heidi's words caused an uproar. Could it be that the Saintess had broken her precepts? She was the personal maid of the Saintess. Since she said so, many people secretly looked at Gu Xingyin suspiciously. Gu Xingyin's expression didn't change in the face of suspicion. She even smiled lightly. Heidi, do you know how big of a sin it is to smear the image of the Saintess and slander the reputation of the Saintess? Her words made Heidi even more convinced that she was just bluffing. Heidi was full of confidence. She said calmly, God of light, if I, Heidi, had maliciously smeared the reputation of the saintess, then let me be roasted by the holy fire and never be redeemed. Gu Xingyin, miss, since you want to die so badly, I won't stop you. Chapter 254. She chuckled and bowed to the only statue of the God of Light in the hall. God of Light, your most loyal believer, Hathaway Louise, swears to dedicate my purest body and soul to you. If I betray you, let my body be punished by God and never be redeemed. The God of Light rested his chin on his hand as he watched his believer deceive him. She said to dedicate her body and soul to God, but she didn't mention anything about her chastity. The God of Light laughed as he recalled how she was full of weird expressions in private, completely different from the holy and dignified person in front of him. How could she be so cute? The entire hall was silent, and only Gu Xingyin's clear voice could be heard echoing unhurriedly in the hall. The high and mighty statue didn't move at all. Gu Xingyin turned around and looked at Heidi calmly. Heidi's eyes widened. Impossible, this is impossible. I saw it with my own eyes. She threw herself in front of the God of Light statue and prayed to God, God, you must have been deceived by this woman. I saw it with my own eyes, she is no longer chaste, she. Ah! To everyone's astonishment, streaks of ethereal golden divine flames began to burn on her body. Looking at the woman who was rolling on the ground due to the pain, everyone remembered the oath she had made earlier. By the God of Light, if I, Heidi, maliciously slander the reputation of the saintess, may I be roasted by the holy fire and never be redeemed. The God of Light really couldn't tolerate a single grain of sand. Gu Xingyin looked at Heidi who was kneeling in front of the God statue and begging. She didn't feel the slightest bit of pity. If her plan had succeeded, the one kneeling on the ground and begging would have been Hathaway. Take this sinner away and expel her from the holy church forever. Gu Xingyin said indifferently. Immediately, a clergyman came out and took Heidi who was in pain away. The holy fire on her body was God's punishment. It was added to Heidi's soul and wouldn't affect anyone else. The Emperor of the Wuxia Empire also expressed his opinion. The Wuxia Empire didn't welcome sinners who were rejected by the gods. Heidi's wails gradually faded away, and the interrupted blessing ceremony began again. But this time, everyone had a better understanding of the saintess' godly favor, and their attitude towards her became more cautious. The Wuxia Empire's emperor personally carried the crown prince. Gu Xingyin gently placed her hand, which was filled with pure light, between the baby's eyebrows. May the high and mighty God hear my prayers and bestow his blessings upon this child. May he possess unparalleled talent and selfless character. He will become the continent's most valiant warrior and the most wise ruler, bringing peace and prosperity to his people. She opened her eyes and withdrew the power in her hand. At this moment, the baby in the emperor's arms suddenly opened his eyes. He looked at Gu Xingyin and giggled. His emerald green eyes were clear and flawless, like the most transparent crystal. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but smile. She couldn't help but reach out and gently stroke the baby's smooth face. Thank you, Saintess. The emperor sincerely thanked Gu Xingyin. Your Majesty is too courteous. Speaking of which, the crown prince is also my younger brother. As his elder sister, I can do my part for him. As soon as Gu Xingyin finished speaking, a gentle white light descended from the statue's hand onto the crown prince's body. Thank the gods. The emperor was overjoyed. The nobles of the Wuxia Empire were also overjoyed. This was the God of Light's pity for the Wuxia Empire. Only Gu Xingyin blushed. She clearly heard a sentence in her ear. This can be considered a meeting gift from me, his brother-in-law, to him. Chapter 255. The Saintess of Light, Hathaway Louise, was greatly favored by the God of Light. When she represented the Holy Church in patrolling the Ouchi continent, as long as she went to a place, within 3 years, that place would be blessed with good weather and full of vitality. Everyone said that she was definitely a messenger sent by God to the Ouchi continent to spread God's gospel. Originally, this was only a compliment from the people of the Ouchi continent to the saintess. However, the fact that the saintess didn't age for hundreds of years made this rumor spread even more. She personally blessed Emperor Charlemagne of the Ouchi Empire, who was also the newly born crown prince, and just as she predicted, he grew into a man of indomitable spirit. Emperor Charlemagne was known as the greatest emperor of the Ouchi Empire. Under his leadership, this ancient empire was like a lion awakening from its slumber, making the entire continent feel a shocking power. Gu Xingyin had lived on the Ouchi continent for 600 years. The Pope had already passed away, and the new Pope was extremely respectful to this saintess who was greatly favored by God. On this day, she vaguely sensed something. She gathered all the upper echelons of the Light Church. The young and charming saintess smiled as gently as ever. She said, "Recently, I have already felt the call from God. I think that I will soon leave this continent that I love so much." The people of the Light Church were shocked. After so many years, Saintess Hathaway had almost become a symbol of the Light Church. Now, was it finally, the time? Many people cried out on the spot. Almost all of them had grown up hearing about the saintess' deeds. After joining the Light Church, they had always worshipped this legendary figure. They had never thought that even though the saintess didn't age for hundreds of years, she was actually just an ordinary person. Since she was an ordinary person, she would have to leave one day. On the third day after Gu Xingyin said this, when the maid in charge of taking care of her helped her get out of bed, she was shocked to find that the saintess had already closed her eyes forever. The mountains and rivers mourned. Gu Xingyin was in the heavenly realm, held in the arms of a certain man as she watched the Light Church and the people of the Ouchi continent hold a grand funeral for her. "Are you satisfied now?" Gu Xingyin turned to look at the man behind her. This person had long wanted her to leave Ouchi continent and return to heavenly realm to live with him. Gu Xingyin still hated him for not knowing how to control himself. How could she let him have his way? In the end, after going around in circles, she stayed in the human world for hundreds of years. If this continued, the God of Light would probably go crazy. The man's answer was a long, hot kiss. On the second day of the funeral, the clergy in charge of guarding the saintess' body watched as her body turned into several streaks of light and disappeared into the horizon. There were many witnesses at the scene. After the news spread out, everyone said that the saintess was summoned by the gods and went to the legendary heavenly realm, which was blissful and worry-free. From then on, the rumors about Saintess Hathaway in the Ouchi continent became even more mysterious. Gu Xingyin could no longer remember how long she and her lover had lived in this world. The gods were not immortal. All living things had a cycle of reincarnation. This world would eventually be reborn after being destroyed. Before the God of Light fell into an eternal sleep, he pulled her into his arms and kissed her fiercely. "I seem to have remembered something." Gu Xingyin looked at him with a smile and said, "What a coincidence. I also remember something." The two looked at each other and closed their eyes. Chapter 256. When Gu Xingyin was about to enter the next world, the system reminded her, "Host, it is recommended that you be mentally prepared." Gu Xingyin was suspicious. "What's the matter? Is the next world very difficult?" "System, the environment is harsh." Before Gu Xingyin had time to ask the system what it meant by harsh environment, she found herself in another place. Gu Xingyin. Ever since my soul became strong enough, the system wasn't gentle to me at all. It clearly gave me a warm reminder before transferring memories. Before she opened her eyes, she found that the surroundings were very bumpy. When she opened her eyes, Gu Xingyin found that her hands and feet were tied and thrown into the back seat of a car. It took her a while to digest the plot. She also understood what harsh environment meant. This world was the apocalypse. The original owner, Li Xingxi, was the third generation of the Li family, and the only female child in the third generation of the Li family. From this, one could imagine how much she was doted on. Moreover, Li Xingxi not only had a good family background, but he was also good-looking and worked hard. At the age of 18, he successfully entered the best university in Hua country, Imperial Capital University. If there was one thing that the original owner wasn't satisfied with, it was Zhong Lingyu, who had been at odds with her since childhood. Zhong Lingyu was the supporting female character of this world. The Li and Zhong families had different standpoints, and the younger generation had always competed with each other since childhood. Zhong Lingyu and Li Xingxi, from childhood to adulthood, competed with each other in terms of appearance, grades, studies, and even boyfriends. Both of them had their own merits. Li Xingxi was bright and beautiful, and Zhong Lingyu was delicate, like a willow, and had an orchid temperament. The two of them were even more competitive in terms of grades. They were admitted to Imperial Capital University in the same year and were known as the two beauties of Imperial Capital University. What made Li Xingxi most comfortable was that the man Zhong Lingyu liked was her boyfriend. She always felt that this matter made her very proud, but she never thought that her boyfriend, Zhao Ziki, was only interested in the Li family's power in the military. When the apocalypse arrived, there was a rumor from the Zhong family that Zhong Lingyu had a rare space ability. Zhao Ziki didn't hesitate to abandon the motionless Li Xingxi and walk together with Zhong Lingyu. During the apocalypse, the military was still strong, and Li Xingxi could have relied on the Li family's power to live a peaceful life. However, Zhong Lingyu joined the largest ability organization in the northern base at that time, Frost. She heard that the boss of Frost liked gorgeous beauties, so she set her sights on Li Xingxi. While the Li family wasn't paying attention, Zhong Lingyu secretly knocked Li Xingxi unconscious and took him away. Who would have thought that before they reached the north, they would encounter a flood of people? Just like that, Li Xingxi died in the zombie tide. Gu Xingyin finished combing and remained silent for a long time. It seemed that at this time, Li Xingxi was already on the way to be kidnapped. The system said, the host can extract the light magic from the previous world. This is the ability that has the greatest destructive power against darkness and filth. Gu Xingyin's eyes lit up. She immediately thought of something and asked, System, did you do it on purpose? First go to the magic world, then let me come to the apocalypse to complete the mission. The system didn't deny it. It's good for us if the host can complete the mission more easily and securely. If it weren't for the fact that the system didn't have a physical body, Gu Xingyin would have hugged it and kissed it. Chapter 257. The system's actions were very fast. Gu Xingyin closed her eyes and felt the abundant light demonic power in her body. In this way, at least she had the power to protect herself in the apocalypse. At this time, the car shook and stopped. Get up and eat. A voice obviously said to Gu Xingyin. She opened her eyes and glanced at the man who spoke. She knew this person. His name was Qiao Cheng. He was one of the 3 people sent by Zhong Lingyu to kidnap Li Xingxi. He was also the only one who treated her kindly. The other 2 people looked at Gu Xingyin with unfriendly eyes. Seeing that Gu Xingyin did not speak, Qiao Cheng thought that Miss Gu Xingyin had lost her temper and refused to cooperate. He sighed and said, It's useless for you to do this. We've already taken you out of the base in the capital. You're just an ordinary person. Even if you escape, you can't go back alive in this world, right? Gu Xingyin was silent for a while and said, Help me untie the rope. Qiao Cheng hesitated. Gu Xingyin sneered. What? Are you worried that I, an ordinary person without the strength to truss a chicken, can escape under the eyes of you 3 people with abilities? At this time, the fat man in the driver's seat said, "You little girl have a big temper. But then again, your face is really handsome." He chuckled and glanced at Gu Xingyin with ill intentions. Xiao Qing untied the rope that bound Gu Xingyin's hands and feet and warned the fat man, "Li Zi, don't forget that this woman is to be offered to the boss of Ice Frost Base." The fat man curled his lips. "I know, I'm just saying." The other person always covered half of his face with a straw hat and nestled in the passenger seat. Gu Xingyin had never seen his face or heard him speak. However, judging from the attitude of Li Zi and Xiao Cheng, this person was probably a ruthless character. The food that Xiao Cheng gave her was just a glass of water and a small bag of compressed biscuits. It didn't taste good and was just barely enough to satisfy her hunger. Even so, Li Zi still felt heartache. "Motherfucker, this food is enough for me to find a hot girl in the base and have a good time." Gu Xingyin, who had always lived a life of luxury. She really couldn't swallow it. At this time, the Li family should be anxious to find her, Gu Xingyin thought absent-mindedly. She looked out of the window. The sky was overcast, as if someone had forcefully covered it with a heavy curtain, blocking the sunlight from entering. The car was parked on a highway. The ground was full of potholes. Occasionally, one could see overturned vehicles on the side of the road, as well as bloodstains and broken limbs. The air was filled with the smell of blood, making it hard for people to breathe. It inexplicably reminded her of the land of woe in the last world. From afar, he saw a wobbly figure moving forward slowly. At this moment, from such a posture, Gu Xingyin knew that it was definitely not a living human. This was the most terrible thing in the apocalypse, zombies. No one knew why the zombies would appear, just like no one knew why the whole world would change when they woke up from their sleep. In just one night, the people who woke up found that the sun didn't rise again. The sky was covered with a layer of haze and the ground began to collapse. Some of them developed the legendary superpowers, but most of them turned into monsters. Chapter 258. Those monsters had no breath, no heartbeat, no emotions, and no consciousness. They only had the instinct to eat people. They were actually dead. Walking Dead. This was the real Walking Dead. This kind of creature was now collectively known as zombies. Zombies fed on the living. Once a normal person was bitten by a zombie, they would also be infected and become a new zombie. Today's Earth had completely become a paradise for zombies. The surviving humans formed several bases. The largest one was, of course, the place where Li Xingxi used to live, the Imperial Base. The world's top scientists and biologists gathered there, as well as the world's most powerful politicians. Secondly, there were bases built by some powerful superpowered people. In fact, the most famous one was Frost in the north. It was said that Thunder, the ruler of Frost in the north, was not only a rare mutated thunder superpower, but also the only king-level superpower on Earth. Moreover, he had gathered a large number of loyal subordinates. In terms of high-end combat power, even the Imperial Base might not be comparable to Frost. Gu Xingyin browsed through the information provided by the system and felt more and more that this Thunder was very likely to be her lover. After all, in every world, her lover was almost the coolest and most domineering one. Of course, she still had to wait until she saw the real person to confirm the situation. Gu Xingyin sorted out the plot and counted the days. About 4 days later, her group would encounter a zombie tide. What was a zombie tide? Hundreds and thousands of zombies migrated en masse. With the strength of her group, it was too easy to be swallowed by the excited zombie tide. She had to find a way to avoid this, Gu Xingyin thought to herself. "Who sent you to catch me?" Gu Xingyin suddenly asked while biting the compressed biscuit. Xiao Cheng was stunned for a moment, but the driver laughed. "TSK. Why do you care where we came from? You just need to be obedient." Unexpectedly, Gu Xingyin's expression was unusually calm. I heard you guys talking. It seems that you want to give me to Thunder, the person in charge of Frost. Someone instigated you to do this, right? What kind of benefits can you get from this? The person who had been sitting on the passenger seat with half of his face covered by a hat suddenly moved. His sharp gaze scrutinized Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin's expression did not change as he endured his scrutiny. She already knew who this man was, Thunder's confidant, an ice ability user, Leng Han. When Gu Xingyin heard this name from the system for the first time, her expression was B. What kind of parents would be so heartless as to give their child, especially their son, such a name? Of course, although this ice-cold name was strange, his strength was solid. In the entire Hua country, there were no more than 10 ice ability users who were close to the 9th level. No one answered Gu Xingyin's question. She didn't take it seriously and said to herself, Lotzi, your fire ability is at level 4. Did that woman Zhong Lingyu send you to knock me out and take me away? Xiao Cheng, water ability martial arts, a free ability user from Frost Base. This mission was a temporary commission. She didn't care about the shocked expressions of the two people and slowly looked at the last person. Your Excellency. Do you also need me to reveal your identity? Chapter 259. For the first time, the man in the straw hat sat up straight in the carriage. Under the straw hat was a pale and handsome face that could be called beautiful. He looked coldly at Gu Xingyin and said in a hoarse voice, Then tell me. Gu Xingyin smiled and said, Your superpower is the same as your name. The temperature in the carriage suddenly dropped, and a thin layer of frost even formed on the seat under Leng Bing's body. Lai Zi and Xiao Cheng looked at Leng Bing in shock. The three of them were not together. To be precise, Lai Zi and Xiao Cheng were together. As for Leng Bing, he was just an ability user that the two of them had brought along after stealing Li Xingxi. In any case, they were all going to Frost Base. One more ability user would be one more guarantee. They could feel the power of Leng Bing, but they never thought that the other party would be able to affect them just by relying on his aura. Especially Fatty Lai. Ice and fire countered each other. He simply had a feeling that under the suppression of the other party, his ability could not be used at all. Unlike the two of them, Gu Xingyin was still smiling indifferently. She guessed that Leng Bing might have appeared here to do some sort of mission. Afraid of causing a misunderstanding, she added, If I said that I'm not an ordinary person, I'm also an ability user, would you believe me? Leng Bing did not say anything, obviously waiting for Gu Xingyin to continue. Gu Xingyin did not keep them in suspense. My superpower is related to prophecy. If you believe me, then listen to what I'm going to say next. If you don't believe me, then pretend that I didn't say anything. The three of them were attracted by her. Prophecy. This was an extremely rare superpower. Frost Base had a prophecy ability user. She could not foresee the details of things, but she had a certain sense of good and bad luck. Even so, that ability user was heavily protected by Thunder. Hearing Gu Xingyin say that she had awakened a prophecy ability, the few of them had different reactions. He always had an icy face, and no one could tell what he was thinking except for himself. Lai Zi was stunned for a moment before he sneered and said, The eldest daughter of the Li family didn't awaken her superpower. This is something that the entire Imperial base knows. If you want to make up something, make up a more reliable one. Xiao Qing glanced at Gu Xingyin. Although he didn't say anything, his eyes showed that he didn't believe her. Gu Xingyin didn't look at them. She only stared coldly and said word by word, For days later, there will be a zombie tide on the national road we are on. TSK. Lai Zi was the first to speak. I thought you were going to say something. Zombie horde? How long has it been since the apocalypse? I've never seen a zombie horde. You just opened your mouth and the zombie horde is here. Shut up. Gu Xingyin was impatient with this fatty. I've already said it. If you don't believe me, just pretend I didn't say anything. She looked at him coldly. How about we make a deal? She coldly raised her eyebrows and looked at the calm girl. She rarely nodded. Speak. Let's change our route. You send me back to the Imperial base. Gu Xingyin ignored Li Zi and Xiao Cheng's widened eyes and continued, 4 days later, you will see the results. If I'm not wrong, it's equivalent to saving your life. Lang Han felt that this woman was crazy. Why do you think I will agree? Chapter 260. Why don't you agree? Gu Xingyin said matter-of-factly, I already said that if you believe me, the worst result would be a delay of 4 days. But if we really encounter a zombie tide, even if you... She glanced at Lang Han and said, I admit that you are very powerful, but even if you are as strong as thunder, you might not be able to escape unscathed from the zombie tide, right? Lang Han remained silent, as if he was considering. The two of them were going to bring Gu Xingyin back to get the commission. If they were really taken away by this cold person, wouldn't their trip be in vain? Panty shouted, don't believe this woman's nonsense. She just wants to take the opportunity to escape. Gu Xingyin coldly glanced at the fatty and said indifferently, I told you to shut up. When she said these words, it carried the deterrence of light magic. Panty only felt that Gu Xingyin's voice seemed to be knocking on his mind. He subconsciously wanted to refute, but found that he couldn't open his mouth for a moment. He looked at Gu Xingyin in shock, but the other party didn't look at him. On the other hand, Lang Han looked at Gu Xingyin thoughtfully and said in a low voice, all right, I agree. Gu Xingyin smiled slightly, happy cooperation. The two of them actually didn't have the slightest intention of paying attention to the other two. Xiao Cheng's expression turned solemn as he looked at Lang Han, Sir, Miss Li is our spoils of war. It's not very kind of you to be like this. Gu Xingyin sneered and said, you guys knocked me out and brought me out. You're even preparing to give me away. Now you're talking about kindness. She coldly looked at the two of them, before I turn hostile, scram. Panty fiercely spat on the ground, fuck, where did this pretty boy come from? I'm giving you some face and being polite, but you really think you're something. Your grandpa Panty. An ice blade flew past his face, and Panty's words came to an abrupt end. He swallowed his saliva, his face somewhat pale. He didn't even see his opponent make a move with that ice blade just now. If this man wanted to take her life, Lotzi shuddered and squeezed out an ugly smile. Just now. I've offended you. As he spoke, he opened the car door. Please get out of the car. Forgive us for not sending you off. Gu Xingyin smiled faintly. Who said we're getting off? The smile on his face froze. Gu Xingyin said slowly, I now announce that we are going to rob this car. You two, get out of the car now. A trace of a smile flashed across his eyes when he heard her say such shameless words so calmly. A trace of anger flashed across Pansy's face. He carefully looked at Lang Han, but found that the other party had no intention of objecting. Even if they drove, it would take at least 10 days to reach Frost Base. If they walked, Lotzi hesitated, but Xiao Qing sighed and got out of the car first. Seeing that his companions had left, Lotzi looked resentfully at Gu Xingyin and also got out of the car. Gu Xingyin suddenly called out to Xiao Qing, remember to take another path. Xiao Qing didn't say anything. He just lowered his head and walked forward. With your strength, these two people shouldn't be able to catch you. There were only 2 people left in the car, so he suddenly said coldly. He looked at Gu Xingyin with a trace of inquiry in his eyes. This Miss Li seemed to be different from the rumors. Chapter 261. Gu Xingyin thought to herself, Li Xingxi was really kidnapped by these 2 people. She couldn't explain this matter, so she only vaguely said, anything can happen when there are accidents. Fortunately, Leng Han didn't care about this. He raised his hand and threw something at Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin caught it and saw that it was a bag of packaged ham. She was surprised and said coldly, looking at the way you eat the compressed biscuits, I think the young miss has never suffered before. There was a hint of ridicule in his tone, but Gu Xingyin was not angry. She tore open the package. Sure enough, this thing tasted much better than the compressed biscuits. Thank you. She looked coldly at her. Even though she ate very quickly, she still maintained a good demeanor. Obviously, this was a natural upbringing that had been engraved into her bones. I just want to wait and see your so-called prophecy. If what you said is true, then this pack of ham is nothing. Of course, Gu Xingyin could hear the cold words, but there was no accident in this kind of thing, right? 4 days was just about the time the two of them returned to the capital base. One night, after Gu Xingyin fell asleep, she gently pressed a small earring on her right earlobe. Bing bing. A deep voice sounded in Bing Bing's ears. I told you, don't call me by that name. The handsome man clenched his teeth. A low laugh came from the other end. After a while, he said, what's wrong? What happened to contacting me at this time? He said coldly, the mission went smoothly, but there was a small accident. I might not be able to go back for the time being. The man on the other side said in a deep voice, what happened? She coldly told him about her encounter with Gu Xingyin and her prediction about the zombie tide. After a moment of silence, he said, follow her well. If what she said is true, do your best to poach her. He turned off the communication and smiled coldly. She was the young miss of the Li family in the capital base. How could it be so easy to poach her? He didn't notice that not far behind him, a tiny light spot was floating on a leaf. Even if Leng Han saw this kind of light, he would probably think that it was a firefly. In the apocalypse, there weren't many of these little things. Gu Xingyin was not surprised that Leng Han would tell Lei Ting about this. What she wanted was Lei Ting's attention to her. In the distant north, a man stood by the window, still thinking about the news that had been sent back coldly. Li Xingxi. That's interesting. The cold moonlight shone through the window onto his face, outlining a determined and handsome face. It was as if he was the work of an ancient Greek sculptor. The lines on the man's face were cold and firm. His gaze was as sharp as an eagle's. Anyone who was targeted by him would have no room to escape. What are you doing? He looked coldly at the neatly dressed Gu Xingyin in surprise. Night vigil. Gu Xingyin looked at him strangely and instantly understood what he meant. Are you afraid that I'll sneak away while you're asleep? Gu Xingyin said, don't worry, the most powerful ice ability user on Earth right now. I won't be willing to throw away such a powerful bodyguard before returning to the capital base. Chapter 262. Han Bing knew that she had misunderstood his meaning and said, I just didn't expect that a young miss like you would take the initiative to ask for a night watch. Gu Xingyin stopped what she was doing and looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. You look down on women? Cold, no. Then that's it. Gu Xingyin checked her outfit, used her hand to support herself, and nimbly climbed onto the roof of the car. She looked at Gu Xingyin coldly with a complicated gaze, then obediently opened the car door and sat in. The night passed without incident. The next day, when he woke up, he saw Gu Xingyin coming down from the roof of the car. Her body was light and graceful, and her feet were accurately calculated to ensure the least effort and leeway. She could see more clearly during the day than at night. From her actions, it could be seen that this woman was not like the rumors that she was an ordinary person without the strength to truss a chicken. Not to mention her special ability, just the move she casually showed was not something that could be done by someone who was not trained in martial arts. Gu Xingyin smiled, Her body had been modified by the system, and her data was close to the peak of ordinary humans. Furthermore, Gu Xingyin had experienced the world of sword cultivators before. Although this world was not suitable for sword cultivators, the external martial arts of body refinement were very suitable. The two of them casually ate 10 o'clock food and continued to head towards the imperial capital base. You drive, I'll rest for a while. Wake me up if anything happens. Gu Xingyin said a few words to Leng Han without the slightest hesitation. She leaned against the passenger seat and fell asleep with her head tilted to the side. The woman's appearance was undoubtedly beautiful, otherwise, the two of them wouldn't have had their eyes on her. Looking at her from such a close distance, there was still not a single flaw on her face. Her plump lips were slightly pouted. Thinking about it, the feeling of her tentacles should be, realizing what he was thinking, a trace of embarrassment appeared on his cold and pale face. He retracted his gaze, started the car, and turned his attention to the road ahead. The two of them were lucky. Other than encountering a few lone zombies, nothing major happened. Soon, the two of them arrived at the Imperial Capital Base. As the world's largest survivor base, Imperial Capital Base had the strictest security and auditing. Gu Xingyin looked at the long line outside the base. They were all people who came from other places to seek protection. She got out of the car and walked to the front of the team. Miss Li. The person in charge's eyes lit up when he saw her. Li Xingxi was very famous in the base. Moreover, the Li family had almost turned the entire base upside down in order to find her. The manager made a phone call. Gu Xingyin waited patiently at the side, coldly standing beside her without saying a word. Soon, a tall man in a camouflage uniform rushed over. Baby. The man saw Gu Xingyin and blurted out happily. Gu Xingyin, before she could say anything, the man gave her a strong bear hug that suffocated her. With great difficulty, she broke free from the man's embrace. Gu Xingyin glared at the man. Third brother, what are you calling me in front of so many people? The man smiled when he heard this. He looked at Gu Xingyin with interest. Where have you been these past few days? We're so anxious. Grandpa hasn't slept for several days. At this time, he saw the coldness behind Gu Xingyin, and his face immediately turned from doting to serious. Who are you? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.